Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you are doing well today. We're doing another tech talk since it is Sunday and it's time to get through with it. Now, what we're going to be doing this time is slightly different because what I have to do is I also have to do the air challenge for the mark of distinction. So, we're going to be playing the IL-10 while also doing this. I'm pretty decent at multitasking, so it shouldn't be too bad. We can always just flick between them and then kind of see what's going on and then kind of go from there. So that's what is going to happen. If you don't know what a tech talk is, it's an opportunity for people to kind of put in their questions or thoughts or feelings, and we can kind of discuss them on the channel. Like that's pretty much the whole point of it, right? So what we'll do is we'll go through each comment. We also live stream it on Twitch, so if you're interested in that stuff, come along, and then we can kind of just have a bit of fun. Hey, Bucky, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hopefully life is all right. So the first one is from Taki-chan, and once again, it is the wonderful timestamps, as you can see. A lot of people asking for the timestamps, so there they are from good old Taki-chan. And I know he says he doesn't want anything. That's fine. I'll still give him something. We'll sort some stuff out. Whether it's just a few games or whether it's a pack or something. Let's just have a little bit of fun. Nice to see you, Donnie. Hopefully you're doing good as well. And everything's all right. Next one is BVM Mass. Awesome. I appreciate your hard work. Keep it up. We're not going to stop anytime soon. Everything's good. Let's just see if I can... Why is it showing the other thing? It shouldn't be showing it. I had this all sorted out last time. Why is it doing that? Well, let's just do this. I don't know why it's not centering it properly, but it'll be fine. It says, there we go. Oh, is it because I did it smaller? No, it isn't that. I'm just an idiot, as always. So I will give that lad a gift. We'll get some stuff sorted. Now we have Unlocking Snow. Hey Tech, what's your thoughts on one day in the far future adding tanks like the Abrams X, K51, EMBT prototypes, etc.? There's a lot of controversy on this topic as Gaijin won't have much information on them, but they're worth modeling and including in your opinion. I think so. Yes, they're going to come to the game, right? The simple fact is they will come eventually to the game. It's not one of those things that's never going to happen. It's just one of those things that is more of a time-based thing. So the simple fact is with a lot of those vehicles, they were only announced in the last 1 or 2 years. And if you... back in the day, Gaijin did a few interviews, especially in Russian, where they talked about kind of their process and when it came to adding stuff. Anton actually did one in Japan, surprisingly enough, about all of the way that they approach adding vehicles and the timeline that everything is on. So from start to finish, depending on the vehicle, it can take 6 months, it can take a year, it can take whatever, depending on what they've actually set up for it. So for stuff like that, I'm sure it'll be on their radar because it was obviously in the news. There was also that big old strategic bomber that America showed up. We actually watched that on live stream, the whole thing, and my god, buzzwords, buzzwords. But stuff like the KF and stuff like the demonstrators that come around, even stuff like the Leopard 2A8, right, which is another one of this type. I'm sure that will be eventually the kind of evolution of what War Thunder becomes. When it comes to the idea there's not really a lot of information on them, I mean, there's a ton of different... Sorry, that's AJ. There's a ton of different vehicles in the game, which there already isn't that much information on them, right? There's the 2S38, for example, is technically a vehicle that isn't in production and is kind of still in the development stage. We have a bunch of vehicles that never even existed in the game, added mainly for supposed balance reasons, like the Kronstadt, and also stuff like the R2Y2, which there is absolutely no way of having information on that thing because, at least from everything I've read, they only really built a fuselage and that's it. So this idea of information, it's one of those things where it's okay, so it's convenient to have, right? It's convenient to have if you want to model something perfectly, but if the information doesn't exist and instead you have to go on other ideas or other areas, they're just going to do it. And, you know, they've done it plenty of times. So with these vehicles, even though there isn't a ton of that stuff, they're still going to put it in. And because they've just done it in the past. So these types of vehicles will come. The only thing that is more likely is they won't come anytime soon, just because, you know, it won't have been in their plans, because they have obviously, you know, they do time stuff like year by year, you know, update by update, all of these different things. And if they're getting these models made and also trying to push through with it, if you want to do like a full model and a proper work on, you want to wait for like all the other stuff you've already doing like come first, and then you like add that in. So that's something that will happen, but you just won't see it anytime soon, right? Which is one of the things. And also, by the way, there's an issue with War Thunder when you alt tab, it freezes like the screen. That's not on my end, I can't fix it, so I apologize if you're watching it like this. Then we have Sasmoza. I don't see the timestamps. I want to know about what you said about spawn camping, and I don't think adding troops is worth it. If you want to play with troops, then go play Enlisted. They struggle to balance the game as it is. So this is these are the comments that make me a little bit peeved, because so you may have noticed I've been having a little bit of fun over like the last basically the last month. I've been screwing about with a few things that I usually don't screw about with. So first of all, video titles, and also just screwing about with general emotions and following certain trends, just to try and, you know, kind of get some data towards making some videos in the future. And one of the things that is an unfortunate trend with especially a lot of people who are involved in War Thunder is the fact that they don't actually play, they don't read anything, they don't really listen to anything, they just want to find specific like tidbits of information and then move on. And this is not just a War Thunder issue, this is like an everything issue, this is an internet issue, because when you're able just to like search for a specific thing all the time, everything else just kind of gets in your way, which is just really annoying. So it's something that at the end of the day, you can't really deal with. Like, it's not something that you can make better or make worse, at least from my point of view. But it shows the problem with, like, the whole, like, content creation thing. Because it's much more about what you title stuff instead of what, you know, the actual state of, like, the video is. Only in very small areas does that actually matter. And usually, like, at the end of the day, stuff like that, like it's just like generic nonsense because it's made for like the lowest common denominator. So this stuff kind of sucks, but at the same time, like you can't do anything about it, and it's an unfortunate mindset issue. So then we have Nogard. So Nogard says, what abilities would you design for TDs and heavies? Should they have more active stuff, like maybe a resupply point that could be deployed, or maybe some deployable camouflage, or go for passive abilities like plus 10% crew vitality when they're a heavy tank or something? I mean, they could just straight up just make the crew more survivable on the individual vehicle. I feel like they don't. You don't need stuff like. You don't need to be able to like influence the match in that way if you don't want to. It could just be like an independent thing. So basically basically like a what do you call it, like a heavy tank could just have like better like crew skills in that way. So if you penetrate it, there's less chance that your crew like get hurt compared to, you know, if a medium tank gets hit. That already kind of exists in the way that its armor works, but they could just like add another layer to it. The other thing, like for SVGs, I mean, there's a lot of people bringing up the idea of putting down troops in areas to be able to, you know, take out stuff like attack capture points and things like that. For me, like, I would give SPGs something like that, but I wouldn't give them in the way that that's set up. I'd give them a recon unit. Most SPGs, the idea of them is you sit them not in the middle of the map, but kind of a little bit of a distance away, and you're able to influence the map by cutting off or shutting off lanes, and then also kind of pushing forward. If you have the extra ability of being able to like plop down, let's say, a squad of snipers or something, but they can't really harm anything or shoot anything, but instead they kind of survey an area, whether it's in like a radar cone or whether it's in just like a sight cone, like a triangle you see in stuff like Men of War, then they could just do that, right? And that would mean that you have something that influences the area. So even if you die, you've plopped that thing there, so if anybody goes into that position, then you can kind of see them going on. The other thing that you could give stuff like SPGs is better callouts. So how you have like scouts which are able to like scout stuff on the ground, maybe you can give SVGs the ability to scout stuff in the air. You could even do like this with heavy tanks, right? Because one of the big counters that I keep getting told for heavy tanks is stuff like CAS. So why not give them the ability to kind of not just accurately call out CAS with the button, but also with the fact that you could actually scout them. Like, so you don't just have light tanks getting given all of these abilities compared to other stuff. The other thing is you could have something like SVGs gaining more score for specific actions compared to other vehicles, right? So maybe an SPG gets more for a kill, whereas a medium tank gets more for a cap, and a heavy tank gets more for an assist or something, because they got rid of the fact that you can just tank damage and get a lot of score, right? Which kind of hurt them. But yeah, you could find like different things where their multipliers are higher in different aspects. And I don't know if that's the case or not. I haven't heard anybody ever talk about it. But it's just a way of kind of not forcing playstyles, but helping people if they want to try different playstyles with different types of vehicles. And for me, that's pretty important because I don't just want to play everything the same way. Like I remember someone talking about how I just want like heavy tanks to be like heavy and medium tanks, and that's not the case at all. I want them to have a place in the game. I just don't want their place to either be absolutely terrible or just smashing everything in front of them, right? So the way that you do that is you do it through ulterior mechanics to be able to try and like help them out a little bit. So for me, that's much more important than, like the BR stuff, because right now they just act like worse medium tanks at the moment, unless they are overpowered, like stuff like the 279. But yeah, I think stuff like that could work very well. Let's do this one. Sorry, I'm lining up for a pillbox. And there you go. You know what I'll do? I'll put some very low volume on, so we have something in the background. So then we have Oh Don't Mind Me. He says, "Hey Tech, I've been enjoying quite a lot of this new video format, and like to thank you for all the effort and you've put into your content. Greetings from Brazil." Good old Brazil. Like to go there someday, especially when it comes to good old Rio. I kind of just want to see it because obviously I've heard a lot of stuff about it. I just kind of want to see it for myself, whether like the stories are true or if they're false or whatever. Here's my question. For matchmaking modes that are based on top vehicle BR, do you think there's more for Gaijin to incentivize players to bring multiple vehicles into a match? I know that there's already a negative incentive associated with rewards, especially if you bring only one machine and die too quickly in a match, and possibly a positive incentive will be added with dynamic repair costs, which seems a bit counterintuitive when you consider the negative incentive. Yeah, I agree. And for minor nations that lack vehicles at certain BRs, which usually can hinder one's options in the first place, there's always the prospect of just adding more vehicles or subtrees to a nation. But I do wonder if a satisfactory result could be achieved with another workaround, maybe something beyond the reward concept, one that helps nations with the black sheep vehicle syndrome, isolated vehicles, and punishes one death leavers simultaneously. Well, I mean, the basic way that you could fix that if you wanted to is obviously with the actual rewards on the vehicles themselves. If you want to promote like a specific vehicle, you could just increase the amount of rewards it has. The issue is a lot of the meta vehicles, or not really meta, but the ones that people want death leaving are premiums, and the whole idea of buying them is so you can get like that increased bonuses, even if you do play like a bear, which unfortunately has fallen into a lake of whiskey. The simple thing that you could also do is just add more stuff to those things, like add decals, or add like special titles if you like, if you like grind out that type of vehicle. I've always liked the World of Tanks system, which where they have like the 3 mark on the vehicle, right? So it kind of shows that you are incredibly good in that vehicle, or that you're in the top percentage of that vehicle at that time. I've always enjoyed that kind of setup, and I really wish they would have added a system like that to War Thunder. I feel like the reason why they didn't is because they didn't want to be seen as copying World of Tanks, even though, over the years, since the games have not fully run in parallel when it comes to like the differences between them, but there's definitely like certain ideas that they've like tried out both, or tried different things. So I feel like some kind of system like that, which instead of just like an ace crew on a vehicle, would kind of give more incentive for people to play what would be classed as like the unloved vehicles in the game. So for me, that's what I would do to try and solve that type of issue that's around. So then we have Jade Fox. Thanks for taking the time. Like you, I don't main one country. However, there are a few variations of vehicles I would enjoy seeing for the German tree. These are the Stuka D7, HE280, yeah, and the bomber version of the DO317, even though the later was cancelled before it could be developed. Its simplified sibling, the A6's prototypes were complete with the DO217Rs. For me, it's the JU88Ps. Those are the ones that always stick in the mind. One last bit. I've always felt that there are 2 ways one could get around spawn camping, and one is have your side of the map be the spawn zone instead of just specific points for ground forces. The other is slightly expanded map size to make room for an FOB. Keep the FOB back far enough so War Thunder's overzealous bot gunners kind of blah 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 blah. So when it comes to these 2 ideas, so let's tackle them individually. The first one, like the whole idea of the kind of like the kind of like whole area where you can click and spawn. Yeah, that works. You'll probably have people who will just spawn like in the specific position over and over again because that's like the perfect place to spawn, right? So you got to be a bit careful about that, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Basically, the idea is if you see somebody like camping on the map, then what you can do is you can move to a different area of your spawn to be able to counter it. And I'm completely fine with that. That would work pretty well. So I'm okay with that. This idea of extending the games doesn't work, and I'll tell you why. So we've talked about this many times. We did a bunch of tests in the past, and also, present maps, you can literally see it already on stuff like Red Desert or, stuff like that. When the maps get too big, people don't, like, the initial engagement matters more in a larger map, because if it takes people 5 to 10 minutes to drive to a position on the map, they don't spawn in again, because they don't want to do that again for 2 reasons. 1, it takes way too long. 2, the other reason is if you've lost that initial engagement and, the people around you have lost that initial engagement, let's say like 1, 2, or 3 people, then those people are going to push forward to those positions where they can overlook you coming back into the area. So this ends up in a situation where you don't actually like control any of the space or anything. So you just get spawn camped after that. And then if you push up an FOB or whatever, right, a forward operating base or whatever, it sounds like a really nice idea. It really does, but then they just spawn camp that instead. Because all you've done is just move the thing forward. You haven't actually solved the issue. You've made the issue come a bit forward a bit, so that you've actually made it easier for them to spawn camp you. Which is the problem, right? Like with the whole thing. Like, so it isn't like we talked about this before, where like if you decide to like make the spawn area larger, so people end up oh dear. If you make the spawn area larger, so you make it so people are in a position where they spawn closer, then it just makes it easier for people to spawn camp after the initial engagement once again. So for me, like, both ideas don't fix the issue. The issue fix is pretty simple, right? Like, as we talked about before, understand where people go to spawn camp as a player, and then counter those positions. There's actually a replay we're going to kind of show next week by Captain Blackjack, which is going to kind of show what I'm talking about. And I've shown it through a bunch of other videos, but we'll do it again as we do. You know, just kind of go forward. So then we have Cinnamon Bread Bun. Fantastic name. Not fantastic profile picture. Would have been better if it was actually a, you know, a cinnamon bread bun. But we'll take it. You know, life isn't always a box of chocolate. I just want to know your opinion on the topic about CAS and how do you think Gaijin can help mitigate the spam in Ground RB? Second question is, how would you nerf IFVs to the point where they aren't as powerful as they are right now, but still capable of what they're designed for? Thanks for taking time answering. Of course. Number one, the way to deal with CAS is the same way to deal with most of these things. There are setups in the game where everything costs spawn points, right? Especially when it comes to CAS. Take those elements of the CAS, which are very powerful, and increase their spawn points. You could change this every half a month or every month. So instead of having, like, you know, flavor of the month stuff over and over and over again, which just has like different parts of it, whether it be helicopters, whether it be guided bombs, whether it be guided missiles, whether it be whatever, right? Fire and forget stuff, which is like the new setup. All you got to do is just make the things which are really powerful that you can see through statistics and see what people are playing at the highest echelon, and just make them cost more. And then that would actually bring variety of general setup. The other thing is you have to incentivize people to spawn AA. And I know there's like the whole spawn AA bro thing, and that's fine, whatever. But what I mean by this is actually making it so a Flarak Rad is not the same RP cost as a Leopard 2A6 or a Leopard 2A5. So what you do is you make what are seen as like the support vehicles, like certain light tanks and like certain AAs and SPGs, you make them less to research than you do the meta standard MBTs, which we have in the game. Why is it that stuff like the ITO costs as much as an STRV-122? You could even make it so stuff like the lower vehicle, like the 121, is slightly more expensive, and then just make the ITO slightly cheaper. So therefore it would actually balance out between them. Because the situation that we have right now, when it comes to how the game is set up, there is as much, from a research point of view, reason to research the ITO as there is the STRV-122. But as people know, since everybody, you know, spawns in a ground vehicle first, your incentive to get the ITO over the 122 is a lot less, because the initial engagement is not going to be against a very aggressive CAS vehicle. The other thing is just stop nerfing AAs. Like, they've nerfed AAs 3 times now. When it comes to their missiles, when it comes to their radars, when it comes to how all of them work, just stop nerfing them. They raised them all in BR, they nerfed the missiles, and they nerfed the radars. They did this all within 4 to 5 to 6 months. And also, they didn't raise any of the planes. Like, we've just had a massive BR increase of not just, like, you know, a bunch of, like, high like, top-tier stuff, which came out previously. We've had a bunch of high-tier stuff now. So a lot of the radar AAs from 8.0 are now 8.3, and now 8.3 are 8.7, and 9.0 are 9.3. But none of the CAS elements got raised. So just simple things like this, where if Gaijin believes, which is something they've said in the past, which I would love, once again, to see the stats for, right? That they believe that vehicles actually do, like, they have the same basic stats if they're in aerialistic or if they're in ground realistic, depending on how they're playing. It's like they have the same, like, it's not usability, that's not the word, but they have the same effect on the match in both game modes. Then why the hell have they not increased their BRs alongside all of the other ground vehicles, since it's not going to affect anything in air, because all you have to do is just bump up the top BR by 1, or by like 1 BR bracket. And now you have the same situation as you did before, and CAS doesn't take over the game in certain areas. Right? So why don't they just do that? I don't know. I'm very confused. So that's pretty much how you deal with the CAS stuff. You incentivize people to get the counters. You give all nations counters as well. So, you know, Japan over there with like a peg leg, like trying to work out what's going on. So you do that, and then also, you know, you incentivize them by maybe increasing the rewards or reducing the RP, and then also you increase the SP cost of the things. The other thing you do is you take the airstrike ability off light vehicles. So you just remove that. Because that's how people get into CAS super early on in the game. So, yeah, you do that. What was the other part of it? Second question. How would you nerf IVs to the point where they aren't as powerful as they are right now, but still capable of what they're designed for? The way that right, okay, so number one, I don't care how stuff is designed in real life, or sorry, I shouldn't say that. I don't care what doctrine they're designed under or what they're designed to do in real life. Because they're never going to be able to fulfill it. IFVs in War Thunder do not work like IFVs do in real life. If you have a look at how they're supposed to be used, and also like the doctrine that like goes past them and, you know, what they're designed for, it doesn't fit in War Thunder. So that isn't something that ever like comes into my mind. Like on the whole, okay, so we have this vehicle and it has to play how it's historically designed for. Nah, because there's a lot of vehicles in the game that you can't do that. And also at the same time, were designed at a point where the doctrine they were under was either like, you know, it didn't work, or maybe they were revising it, or whatever it was, right? The one for me, or the way to fix them, or if whatever you want to call it, is revert the ATGM change, bump them up in BR by 0.3, pretty much all of them apart from a few of them. Then also remove airstrike, as we talked about before, so they don't just become CAS monsters, and keep the scouting ability, obviously, because that makes them unique, but just understand that changing those like 2 things that we talked about, or 3 things, would pretty much just put them in still a pretty powerful position compared to where they were before. So that's at least what I would do, just as a general idea. So yeah. Next one is Hunter Shark. So let's see. Since it will be a week before you do the next one, do you think the BR changes have been good overall? And are there some tanks you think need to move around since the changes? The future. I think overall they're positive because it's taken a few issues off, or a few, like, if you have a look at like what 7-3 Germany was, right? A lot of 7-3 Germany has just straight up gone up right now to 8-0, which shows you how powerful that BR bracket was. You know, the Leopard 1, the DF-105, stuff like this, insanely powerful as vehicles, right? So it kind of showed how a lot of them needed to go up. So I'm fine with that. It helps out a lot of the vehicles that have been struggling from 6.0, 6.3, 6.7, so then they can actually have a meta now, and then maybe that actually solves the 5.3, 5.7 issues, because now Tigers and Panthers can't just do whatever they want. Even though, you know, the win rates are still pretty bad, if you actually play those vehicles, you know how powerful they are and what they're able to do. So for me, that might actually help out in its own way. So I'm kind of happy with that. The ATGM vehicles being the same BR as the light vehicles, even though they have a lot worse capabilities. We brought this up many times. It sucks. I really wish they would start valuing stuff such as like those types of vehicles as much as they should be valued, which is nothing. Like, their value is 0 on the battlefield, which is why most people don't play them, they don't touch them, they don't even go through with them. Like, they just don't, like, grind them or anything. So why do they constantly just keep increasing them over and over and over again along with the IFEs? The fact that the M113A1 TOW is the same BR as the Bradley is outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous and has been outrageous since the start. So for me, I wish they would stop doing the 80 gem changes. They've nerfed the 80 gems heavily, and now they've upped their BR. So that's no good. There are certain BR brackets which are incredibly powerful right now because of the changes. Stuff such as the what's the word? The Soviets 87. You know, we talked about the 279. I literally just have a whole week of videos coming out on the 279 after so many people have just told me that it's completely fine, that it's allowed just to annihilate everything in its BR bracket, including in full up tiers and also in full down tiers. Like, it's just crazy at the end of the day. So for me, that's a problem. A lot of the heavy tanks are going to be issues going forward, you know, which is also issues. And at the same time, you also have areas like France 77, which wasn't touched, and also other areas as well. I'm hoping that the next set of BR changes will affect the lower BRs, so then we can finally have certain vehicles going up to 4.7 or even 5.0, like the KV1s and the good old T-34s of our ilk, but we'll see if that happens or not, who knows. That is kind of like the next step down the chain, right? But overall, I'm happy with the changes. I think they've been more positive. I'm seeing more variety, which is, you know, the one of the main reasons for this threat, which is great. But yeah, I don't know. There's a few questionable ones. There's always just some overvaluations of ACGMs and heavy tanks being a little bit too prioritized in certain areas. I will say one of the problems, though, is, once again, they just didn't raise any aircraft. So a lot of the counters that existed for certain things no longer count. So then we have boys. Do you think Gaijin should add more Canadian tanks or a Canadian sub-tech tree? Canada is one of those places which doesn't have enough vehicles to warrant its own independent tech tree. So you have two options. You either put in the vehicles as event vehicles, premiums, and, you know, battle pass vehicles and all that, or what you do is you put them in as a sub-tech tree. Now, either way, I'm completely fine with the idea of them going to a sub-tech tree for Britain. You know, we already have a few of the Canadian vehicles in the game. You've got obviously stuff like the Ram. You've got stuff like the Mexus, the C2A1. There's a bunch of different, you know, Canadian vehicles sat around the place. But there is plenty more, you know, which they could add, and a sub-tree would, you know, kind of work well. The only issue is would it be one of those tech trees which is interesting for most players? Because a lot of it is maybe not fully copy-paste, most of it is, but basically it's a lineup filler. So it's very similar to Finland. If you have a look at like Finland in War Thunder, when they added the sub-tech tree, you had a ton of vehicles which were exactly just lineup fillers. So like T-34s, for example, ZSU 57-2s, like all of these different vehicles which are already in the game are just to make Swedish lineups stronger compared to others. South Africa was a nation of uniqueness. It was a nation of interesting ideas and thoughts, which is why it's really cool to see them in War Thunder, because of the simple fact that they have like a ton of really interesting designs, and that meant that a lot of them being added to the game offered something different and unique to the British tech tree, because it struggled with having a ton of like light vehicles in it, right? Because, you know, people have always been asking for this all the time. Yeah, exactly, stuff like the Blenheim, right? But Canada can actually shore up a lot of those lineups, whether it's 75 Shermans, 76 Shermans, whether it's the Rams, you know, whether it's stuff like, you know, even the CF100 or things like that. And then, of course, we can start talking about the good old prototypes that they did. But there's a bunch of different vehicles. They even use like a bunch of LAVs, right? Like they have a ton of different LAVs and things like that you could bring in to shore up the British tech tree. They even already have one, the good old ADATs, right? The Canada DATs, which is already there to do it. So it's not as if this isn't like possible. It's not as if like these things can't be done, because they already have been done. So a subtech tree could work really well. I'm not sure it's going to happen though. Since they've already done a bunch of the vehicles as either premium or event vehicles, I think it's more than likely they just keep with like that setup. But as an independent tech tree, it's definitely a no. If they're going to add them in any way, sub-tech tree for Britain. Then we have Matt. Love the content. Keep it up. Thank you, Matt. That's very kind of you. It has been really fun doing it over the last month, and we're just going to continue, you know? Like, I've got no breaks on this train. We should have an update coming out soon, and obviously doing the event. I've been really enjoying Men of War 2, though, playing it with Freeman. You'll see a bit more of it on the channel next week. And then also just kind of doing a bunch of just ridiculous stuff during the event. Like, you know, playing the 279, Type 16, things like that. Should be enjoyable. There we go. So the next one is Kyle. Whenever I see Kyle, I think of Lyle from George of the Jungle. It's Lyle, your boyfriend. Right, anyway, sorry. Kyle Marion. Hey, Tech. What do you think the delay is with submarines? It seems like we see frequent adding of vehicles with anti-sub capabilities, whether it be depth charges or anti-sub rockets. There is even naval aircraft helicopters with the capacity to sub-hunt. My hopes were raised with the voices added in for subs but no talks yet. Do you think the delay is based on balance? How do you know they're delayed? How do you know, like, how do you know they're supposed to already be out? Stuff gets added to War Thunder all the time, which kind of adds ideas to people's minds about when stuff is going to come, right? You've got to remember, as we talked about early on in one of the other questions or one of the other thoughts, is Gaijin's timeline for things, it isn't just like daily or monthly, it's like bi-yearly and yearly, or even, you know, 5 years in the future. I need to find that interview that Anton did, because it was really eye-opening to me. He actually did it in English as well, so it's not like, you know, the guy's fluent in English and was even 10 years ago. But he straight up just did this like interview talking about, yeah, so in like, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 years, this is what we're going to do here. You know, this is all the planning we're doing here. This is what we're going to set up here. And it was just like, oh, okay, so these guys literally are on, you know, a different level to most people think of. They're not dealing with stuff like on a month-by-month basis. This stuff is planned out at least like, you know, slightly for years and years to come. And this is pretty much how all businesses work. It's something actually talking about... I got into a lot of trouble a few years ago because I decided to try and explain how businesses work from top down to a bunch of War Thunder players who wanted content now, and didn't understand why things were like taking time, or why not everything can just be done now, right? Like, why can't they just fix this bug now? Why can't they put in the skin that I want now? Where is this vehicle, you know? Like the T90M tracks, right? There's literally T90M tracks in the files. They're used for another vehicle, but this meant that a bunch of people went, oh, look, T90M coming, woo! But, like, if you've ever been part of a business structure from the top down, so and I don't mean just like a small startup, because small startups can and will get like funky in the first few years. But if you've ever been in a business that has been around for like 10, 20, 30 years, and you've ever been in like management meetings, or if you've ever been in anything like that, where they're discussing what to do in the future, when they have a ton of capital behind them and they have a ton of reputation behind them, they are planning so far ahead in the future, it just like beggars your mind, right? And that is something that is very hard for people to understand is going on, because they don't like, instant gratification is so big at the moment, and also at the same time it's just there's so many moving parts when it comes to things. You wouldn't be able to like sit down and put them all together at once to like make sense of it. So sometimes you have to wait for people to create the models. Then you need people to, you know, like develop the models in the game. Then you need people to maybe revise that stuff. Then you've got to get somebody to develop a specific round for that specific thing. Then you have to like, you know, get different people in to maybe test the thing. Then maybe you have like the server stuff on top of it. There's all these different like layers which are going on, even just for like one singular vehicle. And sometimes a lot of these layers are done by one person. Like when it comes to like World War mode or something, there might be only one person who's working on that, and therefore it's going to take them time to do things. And yeah, you can, you know, bring in more and more people to be able to do it, but then they've got to learn how the code works, then they've got to learn how to do this and how to make stuff on top of it, and it's just a pain, right? To try and get people like used to a system that you've created. So just like submarines and just like everything else that you can think of which like feels like that, these things are all planned out on purpose. And sometimes things get done earlier on than others. Maybe the voice lines are done before some of the models of the submarines. Maybe it was planned like that. Maybe they put the submarine audio files in because they were putting in all of the other naval voice lines anyway and didn't want to split them up into different categories. Maybe they wanted to create some hype for submarines to see how many people were generally interested in them. Maybe they just, you know, decided to put them out there as kind of a feeler to get, once again, the idea in people's heads instead of just, you know, the standard April Fool's things we did. And it definitely works. Like, it works every time. Because whenever stuff like this is added, it gets people talking about, well, what happens if, you know, submarines are added? What happens if this is added? What happens if that is added? And it just gets it into, you know, the general ideas of what people are discussing in the game. So it might be, you know, it could be down to like a balance thing. They might be trying to adjust that stuff. But as they've said many times in the past, that seems to be like a secondary equation compared to just adding new stuff over and over again, because they believe that the way to balance things is to put it on the live server and then, you know, obviously try and, from the human point of view, try and balance it from, you know, the before it gets added. But the way to actually properly balance stuff is through the statistics of the player base. So that's when you do the full testing, when you get all the stats back in, because it's the largest amount or the biggest like kind of sample size that you can get, whether it be like just researching the things, whether it be playing the things or playing against them. And that is important, right? But also that means stuff can be busted for like 4 to 5 to 6 months or even more. And then if you just keep adding, you know, mechanics on top of it over and over again, then it just gets worse and worse, right? Which is a situation we're kind of in right now when it comes to top tier stuff. But you get the idea, right? So we're just in that stage of maybe things aren't finished yet, but it's planned to not be finished yet, right? Maybe it's planned that in the future, like in like the coming year or 2 years, then submarines are gonna come out, and this thing is just a little bit of hype for the submarines coming. You know, it doesn't have to be delayed or anything. Not everything has to happen all at once. Maybe they want to add in specific ships before they go for that stuff, right? So the next one is Liam Shia. I see like Chia Butter. Hey Tech, we have seen a lot of light tanks in top tier AAs. 2 seconds, all right, we're getting closer. We have seen a lot of light tanks or top tier AAs for Israel. Is there not enough selection? Also, why do they keep adding Magax instead of adding something like a light tank or more variants of the Turan? Right, let's just shoot this guy. Once again, this is like the hardest bit that I struggle on shooting at. It sucks. This is also generally why I don't play during like tech talks, because we'd have to like, you know, take breaks to do stuff like this. More variants of the Turan. What's your opinion on this? And do you have any ideas on vehicles for Israel? Thanks, Tech, for the content. Love the great work. Well, thank you, Liam. So, simple. What is it easier to do? Is it easier to copy a pre-existing vehicle or to create a full new model for another vehicle? And the answer is it's copy a vehicle and add something to it, right? If you already have the model of an M60, let's say a Magak 6 or an M60, and you decide, you know what, I just want to add a bunch of these in. People are complaining about lineups, not being in for Israel. People want, stuff that that will fill out the tech tree to be able to kind of like grind out this stuff. Well, this is the way we do it. We know that people like medium tanks. We know that people like this stuff, and also, we don't have to create any new models for it. We can just add stuff to pre-existing ones. It's a band fix. It's a what do you call it? It's like a plaster. It's like a plaster on a wound. It doesn't really fix the wound, especially if it's a deep one. But what it does is it kind of makes you forget about it and also makes sure it doesn't get infected. So it doesn't really get worse. But eventually you're going to have to get it operated on, right? And that's the thing about the Israeli tech tree. The way that they've added it, it means that there is stuff for people to grind in it. So, people just don't max it out. Then also at the same time, it's set up in a way so it means that people do have full lineups where they want to, and gives people a reason to play it. If you like medium tanks, now there's a reason to play it. The reason why there hasn't been a top tier AA, don't know. That would be something to ask Gaijin, and what they would say is it's in development. And then also, if you wanted a reason for the light tanks, I mean, they'd probably turn around and say there are some light tanks in the tech tree. You just have to look at the bottom ones, which is fine. But it's a simple idea, and people, it's kind of being facetious, right? Because they're not actually answering the proper question, which is why is there not any in like higher echelons than the low area. But the simple fact for me is it's just a development time thing. Like, stuff like that will be coming in the future, but it takes longer to develop, unique stuff like that instead of, 8 M60s. The Turan thing, we actually did get another Turan, if I remember. But also, I think they actually want to make a lot of these vehicles more unique. And I know that sounds funny since they're all Magaks, but if you actually look at the Magaks, they are unique compared to... the American vehicles, right? Apart from a few which are basically the same, but like their models at least are different, right? And that's something that they're going for. So the idea is they're at least trying to make them different in some ways. If they had like the Turan 6, that's just a T62. If they had the IS-3, that's just an IS-3, right? If they had the IS-3M though, slightly different. So it might just be that. Also, it might just be, once again, the pipeline thing. They have some ideas of where they're pushing, through certain things, and that part isn't back yet. Maybe it'll be here soon. So now we have Lewis MK10. Thanks for asking my question. It's been fun. You're a great guy. Thank you. But just be careful. Alleyways are alleyways. I'm currently waiting for a G sale to come on. Do you know when the next one is? And would your 3% discount added on top of it? Lastly, do you know if the HVM Stormers missiles have been altered recently? They seem to explode less often. So, let's go through this. The next G sale, or sale in general, is November. So, early November is when they turn up, right? And that is like the big sale because that's like the anniversary sale on the event. So that is the sale that everybody looks forward to, usually the best deals across the board. So that's that. The partner code, so the discount isn't like an additional discount on top of the other stuff. I've seen a bunch of creators try and do this. It's facetious and not true. It doesn't give you an additional discount on top of stuff that's already discounted. But what it does do is it still supports the channel and also gives you the decal. So if you're a person who has already used, and the code can be used an unlimited amount of times, so you can use it for every purchase. So if you're a person who is looking to buy stuff off the store, there is no reason not to use it, right? Like there is no negative to using it for either party. You know, at the end of the day, like you get the discount on stuff that isn't discounted, but also at the same time you always get to support the channel and do that, which means that I can pump out more stuff and also make more things, which is something I've been focusing on. And over this year, I've got to a point where I'm a lot more efficient than I was previously, compared to like last year and the years before. And even though like the amount of content hasn't changed, because we pumped out a lot last year, we're pumping out pretty much the same this year. What has changed is the relative stress levels, which I'm a part of, right? So it isn't, since I'm a lot less like, I suppose I'm personally a lot less kind of like trying to sort stuff out like as quick as possible. It basically means that now what I'm able to do is do them at a rate where it's a little bit less on me, and I'm able to pump out the same stuff. So every year we get a little bit better and a little bit easier. And as usual, when it comes to this stuff, what improves that is, well, money. What the... Well, that's unfortunate. Because it means that I can keep up. It means that I can keep up when it comes to, you know, like technology, and it means that I can invest in different areas of the community to make it, you know, a little bit more easier to use. And, you know, that's that's the general little, you know, way of doing it to make it a little bit better. So, yeah, simple as. Also, the HM Stormers missiles have never worked for me. They've never worked. I don't know how else to put it. Because of my ping, because of where I live, the desync is a real issue when it comes to the Stormer HVM and also a lot of other vehicles that kind of exist. So anything that has to like hit a target in that way and not have a explosive kind of proximity, I'm always going to really struggle with. And the Stormer's been that since the beginning. I remember talking about the fact that the Stormer actually has one of the highest skill ceilings in the game, but it's too affected by desync to matter, which is, you know, still true to this day, which is why it's quite a high BR, even though for most, or for people with higher pings, it's completely useless. So we have a like your cut, G. Nice to see you. I've recently gotten into Simmer, and to be honest, love it over realistic, so much more just because it allows me to use aircraft that don't do well in race fighting to their abilities in Sim. The problem I have noticed is that when I play China or Russia, for some reason, all friendly airplanes are Sabres for the Russian-China teams and MiG-17s for the others, US and Japan. This needs to be addressed, as I've so far team killed 6 Sabres, believing it's enemies, when in fact it's not. What's your opinion on it? Well, I know a lot of people are foraying into simulator for the thing, you know, for the event, because okay, I'm just gonna quickly turn on my fan, okay? Because my God, is it warm in here? And I forgot to turn it on. So a lot of people have started venturing into Sim, especially now that the event's around, because you can get it done quicker in Sim. And also at the same time, the interesting thing about Sim is the simple fact that you can straight up, obviously, just kind of play by yourself, and you don't really have to worry about anything. And a lot of people like that because, well, it basically means that you can just grind the event by itself. When it comes to different things affecting Sim, like the types of vehicles which are on either side, I'm not sure what dictates it. Probably something to do with that setup. Like, I don't think it's like team orientated. I think it's more like map orientated, because that's how it is in Realistic. I don't know why it would be different in Sim. But for me, yeah, it would be nice if they kept it more like nation specific, so it's easier. But I'm sure there must be a way of checking that, right? Like, you know, whether like they're like on your team or not. Like, are you able to like target them? Can you like ask your allies, or is it just a simple thing about learning the maps? And it might be. I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. If you are interested in Simulator, one of the people to go to is a guy called Wingling Dragon. Wingling Dragon is a streamer and also YouTuber who does a lot of sim stuff and is very much on the ball when it comes to sim and also how it all works. So it's very much important to actually deal with that, right? So yeah, simple as that, really. Just go have a chat with him. He's a super nice guy, and since a lot of people are getting into sim because of the event, I mean, why not? So then we have subs no videos. I think an improvement to the one infantry idea would be not giving it to APCs, but instead utility helicopters. I feel like it would really help out some of the bad reserve Hueys in many tech trees and give use to them. Could be something like dropping off troops to cap points so you can take off and go while it remains being captured. Yeah, I mean, so I think somebody mentioned that last video, didn't they? Like, at least that idea, and I'm fine with it. Like, you know, if they want to add it, like the amount of times that that's actually going to work compared to, you know, not working. Because the thing is, in order to capture a zone with a heli, you have to land on it, right? And it takes time to land on it. But also at the same time, if you are looking to capture a zone with a group of troops, you're going to have to hover above it and have the same issue again, right? But instead of, you know, sorting it out, you're just going to be hovering above it. So in general, I'm fine with if they want to do it. I don't think like if it's kind of like one of those like mechanics like engine exhaust, right? Like you see engine exhaust on this thing, where you can see it like there. Like it's a nice little addition, and I'm really happy they added it. Like however many years ago they did, and it's something that I personally enjoy, but it's not something that's a game changer, and that's this idea, right? So yeah, I mean, why not? You know, give them a little bit more functionality. Just the one thing they're not allowed to do, you know, with a shaky finger. The one thing they're not allowed to do is they are not allowed to give scouting to helicopters. Like, I saw so many people talk about that and the idea of adding it into the game. No, they're just not allowed to do that. Like, leave that be. That idea, dead in the dirt. Helicopters already are annoying enough, especially with some of them. And if you only give it to certain ones, that's fine. But half the time you just have somebody who's just dead weight on your team where they're just standing there scouting people. We already have enough scouts in the game. We don't need more, you know, especially when it comes to that stuff. So that's a big no-no. Good evening, Constable Rod. Nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing well. We're just doing the tech talk, so just having a chat through ideas. Hopefully you're doing well. And then we have Tysel. The grind for air feels manageable now, but I still feel like we could be given 20 to 40% more SL and research from tanks, especially kills. You mean like aviation and ground? Aviation and ground is incredibly bad for research. So if you're trying to like grind out aircraft in ground, you're going to have a really tough time. It's going to take you years to do so, and you're not really going to be able to deal too much with it. So because you're just not going to research a lot. If you want to research aircraft, you do it in the air modes because you get way higher rewards. Aviation has always been the easiest to research out of the three for me, just because of, you know, the amount of effort and time that goes into it. It's not as much as others, so yeah, I mean, I generally don't mind. I think it's okay. I'm just hoping they add in all those brackets that they talked about, you know, the good old folded vehicles. It's funny because the folded vehicle stuff, it always gets brought up ground vehicles, right? Because ground vehicles is the problem. Ground vehicles is where people are struggling to research. But I tell you what, there's a lot of areas of naval and also a metric ton of areas in aviation that need foldering. You could folder like the vast majority of the Japanese tech tree. And also, think about how many Spitfires are in the game, or Focke-Wulfs, or BF-109s, and hardly any of them are folded, so for me, that's something that also needs to have a look into, right? So yeah, that's something that I would do. And also, like, at the same time, obviously, less research across the board is always better for pretty much everybody. And hopefully, in the future, we'll get those research changes in. Because they didn't... So they've... Jesus Christ, guns. There we go. So, what they haven't done is they haven't brought in pretty much any of the research changes yet. So because they haven't brought any of those in, I'm kind of waiting to see what they're going to do with it. And then we'll kind of talk from there about more of like the research areas, right? Any tips for the Javelin? Just got it. Force 1-on-2s with the missiles. Hey, Shills, nice to see you. Yeah, hello, Luce. I've got it. I'll probably play it at some point. Looks pretty fun. It's a little bit clunky and I just die too much, but we're going to talk about it more on a different day. So then we have Twatha Dedanum. Pretty interesting name. Right. Thanks for the response. I never knew that Gadget moved from Russia. I hardly keep up with much news about them unless it's relevant to the actual game. Fair enough about it coming down to economics, essentially, and it not being a moral issue. I've started grinding through the Italian tree, and it's been painful so far. What do you think they could do to make Italian a more enjoyable nation to play as? I think every time you win a match, they should start playing that Spider-Man pizza song. Or that one. Like if they just do that, Italian win rates increase by like 20%. The basic thing that they can do, and something that we've talked about them doing for a long time, and what they should have done, is add subtrees to the nation. You know, there's plenty of them that they can add. You know, Hungary, Romania, any of Europe, Spain, just chuck them all in there. You know, just go crazy, right? Add Switzerland, who cares? Like, just just add them all to Italy, just to make them so they actually have better lineups in not just their ground forces, but also their aviation at higher echelons. Look, because there are like bright sparks of each of the tech trees for Italy. You know, maybe the naval one, I mean, the sparks are very dim, but they are still there. For aviation and ground, there's some fantastic areas. But just like Sweden had issues with, just like Britain had issues with, you have areas which are just no good. And once you hit those areas, especially since it's a minor nation, they feel so hard to get through. And, you know, once again, Sweden had issues when it came to its rank 3 and 4. Boom. They added Finland, sorts out a lot of the issues, adds a lot of high-tier vehicles they don't need, but once again, helps them out, right? If, you know, just adding more stuff like the ITO, for example. And then when you have a look at stuff such as Italy, they have not been given that hope. They have just not been given that addition, and that would have helped them out so much going forward. So just add any European country you can think of, and then even some extra ones as well. Don't worry about the crazy nationalists when it comes to Italy. They are such a small minority of everything. They should not be listened to, as always, because, well, pretty much every single one I've been able to talk to is just straight up brain dead when it comes to the ideas of the game. Anybody who is ideologically motivated when it comes to certain nations in the game and doesn't understand that the game is an apolitical game and shouldn't, you know, even think about stuff like that should not be listened to. And One Nation players who don't play anything else should also not be listened to when it comes to balance or when it comes to matchmaking. Sorry, I need a drink. So yeah, so beef them up with tech trees, subtrees, sorry. So then we have and then he dead. Hey Tech. I've been playing Germany a lot and noticed that unlike other countries, Germany lacks a rank 3 light tank, meaning Germany doesn't have a peer to the M18 or the PT-76. Germany does have the Pack Puma, but it's so rare it doesn't change anything for the vast majority of players. Meaning Germany is often left without flank support and can become painful being stuck to a more monotone playstyle. The normal Puma is good but not effective at high BRs. The newer Battle Pass vehicle and the low-tier light tanks, STKC 222, are nice, but a good mid-tier light tank should be added, like maybe an Eastern German PT-76, or bring back the Pack Puma in a more recent event. Yeah, I mean, technically there is a small gap there that they could add something in. I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, I'm a little bit less interested in fixing an issue like that since they basically have everything else in the tech tree, right? So it's kind of one of those like priority issues in general, like where you have like nations which just don't have lineups at certain tiers, but you know, well, we're missing a light tank here, so we need to fix it. There's a bunch of other nations that just don't have 5.3 light tanks. Britain doesn't have one. You know, you got the Concept 3, that's pretty much it, which isn't a 5.3. Then you have, you know, stuff such as, like, I don't think Italy has one. Oh no, they have the Hellcat now, don't they? Then you have what? Israel doesn't even have a 5.7. France, do they have the Hellcat now? I mean, I don't even know what France has when it comes to that stuff. Yeah, Japan's another one. So for me, it's just, it's like one of those like minor issues that would it be nice if they fixed? Yes, but is it a huge thing if we look across the board? Not really. I don't know what they would add either. Like the light tanks for Germany, there aren't really any like early Cold War or like late war light vehicles. You got the Lux, but the Lux had a 20mm, right? Technically, you could take the Puma up to those BRs, but I don't know. I'm not sure what you would even give them. Like, they could add a PT-76 to them if they want, but the idea of a PT-76 being a competent vehicle, I know a lot of people try and make it a competent vehicle, but it just isn't. It's one of those that very much struggles a lot against many things. Hey King Pong, nice to see you. But yeah, that would be a fix, but it would also basically be the same as what every other nation has. So we have Insane Robot. For a good general gaming mouse, I recommend one from Red Dragon with 7 buttons. Plus minus sensitivity, LED light, 2 for extra on the side, blah 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 blah. Also, it's pretty comfortable for the hand. Preference, usually have less latency, don't worry about the batteries. Mine is reaching 2 years in autumn, it still feels good while using it. Also, it's usually accessible price ranges. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I will write that down. Because the ones that I use are fine, like they work very well. I just, you know, it's one of those things which I'm always looking to go through since, you know, my standard mouse lasts about 1.5, 2 years since I use it quite a lot every day, like 8 to 10 hours a day, so it's kind of crazy. Which ammo is the best one? It depends what you're using, King Pong. If you're at the lower levels, you're looking for AP with a mixture of HE in it. But hopefully you're doing well. Alright, so then we got the next one. So we have RTZ. Anytime I read RTZ, I just think of the Dota player RTZ, and how very much always the princess, never the wife. Very sad. With German planes? Oh, fair enough. Yeah, so you just want to use stuff with at lower levels. You want stuff which has like a lot of incendiary in it, so you know, I in it, or H in it, like HE. But most of the time, you just use air target belts and stuff like that will be fine. And then use tracers or universal, if sorry, if you struggle with aiming. Then we have RTZ. Hey Tech, how would you fix the Charger 2s? It's known they don't get much if any love, and they have essentially been nerfed to the ground. They need to be buffed. The Nero on the tank should have way more kinetic protection. The speed should be better. Like there is footage, bro, that shows the tanks going way above speed. Gaijin says they went. So simple as really. I don't subscribe to the narrative that challenges are bad. Yeah, I know. I'm one of those crazy people. Every single challenger that I've played, I've been able to do really well in. So that's the Challenger 2, Challenger 2F, Challenger Mark 2, and Challenger Mark 3. I haven't played the TES, because anybody playing the TES is just playing a worse vehicle, because once again it's just heavier. And also, I haven't played the E, because, you know, it isn't... I just haven't decided to play it yet, because it's an underlying vehicle. So the E, as a vehicle... looks pretty nice. It solves the mobility issue, you know, as talked about. But at the same time, I really don't think that the challenges are as bad as people say. Like, you know, their reloads are really nice. Their defensive capabilities are generally pretty good too. And also, at the same time, yes, they need to be played in a specific way. You can't just run at people like a madman. But that's like everything that isn't meta when it comes to the game. So I've never had a bad time in the challenges. My main issue with the challenges is not the challenges. My main issue with the challenges is they have absolutely no backup when it comes to the game. If they had backup, like if they had like, you know, light vehicles that you could bring in, or AAs which don't try and self-destruct or just miss targets constantly, or at dodgy BRs so you have to up to your vehicles with it, then I'd be fine with it. But that doesn't exist. And also the CAS elements for Britain are okay, but they're nowhere near the level of many other nations. So I actually don't think the challenges are the problem. I think it's the supporting cast. I think the supporting cast is the part which Britain struggles with. And that kind of has been shown with the Challenger E, where, as we said, the Challenger E literally fixes the issue that, you know, many people had with the Challenger, where it just straight up wasn't able to be as mobile, so therefore they went, well, I'm not getting to positions quick enough because I can't work out how to take secondary positions instead of primary positions. So for me, yeah, it's okay. Like, it's fine. I would just like more light tanks and more things that kind of separate what are classed as major nations than minor nations. Hey Kelp, nice to see you. Like, if I have a look at my stats, right, like while we're here, for Britain, oh no, wrong one. Like, we have Charlie 62, 55, good win rates, Mark II same, and then I think I'm running into a building. Oh yeah, no, I'm good. And then like everything has good stats with it. So I just don't subscribe to this idea that they're bad. There you go, the 2F as well. All my Charlies have like 55 to 60% win rates, and all with like 2-to-1 KDs, and they get a stock APF SDS. It's just a playstyle thing. It really is. Alright. Let's just get this guy. We had to do a bit of defensive flying there. Kind of all over the place, but not too bad. Okay. Let's go to the next question. We have Mephisto Clemix. He says, "Hi, Mr. Tech." Hello, Mr. Mephisto. "I want to start by thanking you for the video about the Italian tech tree. All of that reminded me back when the Italians were added, there was a discussion about the vehicles and their skins. Basically, a dude on War Thunder Facebook group wasn't so pleased to the fact that Italian planes had the RSI skin instead of the Kingdom, claiming also that would have been better having US planes in it. People responded by saying that we should just give time and they will make things right, if only they knew. No, cutting it short, you mentioned in the video that Italy doesn't get new mechanics, so how about making players choose the skin on the vehicle between Kingdom and RSI? I mean, giving 2 free skins, I know they can be downloaded from War Thunder Live, but for a console is not available and would be cool to have it already in game. We have Gamescom coming soon. Do you think they'll announce something? Also, we still haven't seen the creature. Show it to us. What, you mean AJ? You want to see AJ? The creature. The dubious little creature. Yeah, I can get AJ. And with the skin stuff, yeah, they could just add them as unlockables, right? Like with G stuff. Hey, I'll go get the dog. I'll be 2 seconds. You can see the great ASJS. Hey, Jay. Hey. Hey, buddy. Yeah, man. So I only have him for a little bit because it's his shower time. So he's about to have his shower. So here he is. Here's AJ. He's a little Frenchie. Hey. There you go. So he's a pretty big old Frenchie. But you know, this is the dog that you hear. The greatest guard dog of the land. Hey, buddy. He's a very happy dog, a very cuddly dog, and generally feels pretty good, you know? There we go. Okay, thank you, buddy. So, I'll just take him out, right? It says, yeah, it's bath time, isn't it? Yeah, I know. He doesn't like bath time, probably because he's a dog. So, right, there we go. Hey, Pepe Spew, nice to see you. Which LOTR boxes did you buy? The normal boosters or the draft? So I've had I have like 3 set boosters packs, or sorry, 3 set booster sets. The bundle, the pre-bundle. I had all the commander decks. I have a jumpstart booster set, and then also a draft booster set too. Oh, sorry, just a standard draft set. So we got kind of like one of each, basically. Because I wanted to go hard on this since I haven't really bought anything for myself in like the last 5 years. Right. Well, I mean, they gave the Fire and Forget stuff kind of with the Fredship, but yeah, they could definitely give them like more camos and stuff. When I think about like the anniversary camos for Italy, they've been really nice to look at, you know. Like where'd I buy them from? Various different stores, basically around like where I live. In BC, there's a lot of like Magic the Gathering stuff, so you know, I also bought one of the things from Toronto because you couldn't get it anywhere else. But yeah, basically stores literally just have them around here. If you're looking in Canada for places to buy from, 401 Games is definitely one, which is trustworthy and one of the bigger ones, which has pretty much everything. I don't know about America though. Right, next one. Hey Miguel, nice to see you. So the next one is Paul D. Hello, Paul. I wonder when it comes to the desire for large area maps, how much comes from the desire to snipe at long range with relative immunity to counterattack, and how much is from wanting to make it more difficult for the enemies to cross the battlefield and spawn camp? I think most of it comes from people playing either strategy games and, you know, oh, not Canada, but close to Alaska. Oh, fair enough. Have a look around Vancouver. There's a ton of stores in Vancouver that sell the stuff. I don't know about Alaska, but yeah, Toronto, 401 Games in Toronto is pretty good. I think it comes from people who play strategy games or people who play more realistic games. When it comes to like big old like single player stuff, like big old strategy things like that, that's where I see a lot of these ideas come from. And then the other set is from people who just don't know any better. I think is like there's this thing we've talked about a lot in War Thunder, which is so true, and it's never not going to be true. And it is the simple idea that some people, and Gaijin does this thing too, because, you know, they follow same narratives. Sweet dreams, Rusty Sniper. Have a nice rest, man. Is the simple idea that sometimes they just want to change things up, or they just want to add things to change up the meta or change up how everything goes. So you basically do it in order to like keep everything fresh, even if it's more negative, right? That's what unfortunately happens with a lot of mechanics that they add and things when they first come in. A lot of them are just straight up broken when it comes to the game. And yes, it changes how people play the game, but also it means that you have to relearn everything, and you have to deal with like this new set of things which are being abused by different players, and it's just not fun to play against if you don't have the thing, right? So that's why the whole setup is just very annoying. So for me, when I look at like War Thunder and like stuff such as that, like when I look at stuff such as, you know, the large map guys, I honestly think it's just people who just want a change. You know, they look at the thing and they go, okay, I don't like how it is now, and I want it to change. I'm not sure how to make it change. This is the easiest way that I can make it change, so this is the one I'm going to push for. It's literally just an evolution of the people who go, yo bro, I want the game to be better. Make the game better. I don't like the game. And then you go, well, what do you want to like? What do you want to do? Or like, how do we go through this? And then they just go, I don't know. Just make it better. I want it to be better. And it's like, well, okay, but. And then they just go, just make better maps. All right. Well, what do you like about the map design? I don't. Just make better ones. And it's like, well, what do you do? And it's just an evolution of that. It really is. It's one of the easiest things that people can cling to as an idea of change, right? And now you're seeing the repercussions of that at high tier aviation and also ground, right? So then we have State Tact. Let's see. Hey Tech, thanks for responding to my question last time. Now for the next one. Haha. How would you tackle the current state ATGM carriers are in now? I want to play them, I think it can be fun, but ever since the nerfs and now the incoming BR changes, I don't think it's worth it to do so now. Maybe have the cap points faster or something? I'm probably not qualified to give an opinion on that. Cheers, have a wonderful day. Anybody is qualified to have any opinion, but also understood that when it comes to War Thunder, but also understand everybody is equally open to criticism, which is the thing that we struggle with when it comes to the overall community, right? 109 just got clowned on by an IL-2, must be pre-recorded. Well, it's an IL-10, but nah, this thing beats BF 109s in turn fights. The simple fact is with obviously the ATGM carriers is they're in a pretty rough place, right? Like we've talked about it many times. Like they're not in great positions, and hopefully at some point they will get in better positions, but right now is not that point, right? So the idea for me that you could like kind of soft buff them, like, you know, as you said, like the capture thing, I think that's a good one. I like that. You could also make it so the you could also make it so you know, we talked about previously, like the whole recon element thing that we talked about, like that thing could be something that you kind of focus on with it, and then also you could maybe do some like kind of other things, like just to kind of make them better, like increase rewards or whatever. But the main thing I would actually say to people right now, if you don't, if you like don't want to play them, just don't play them. Like, you're only gonna hurt yourself, right? Like at the end of the day, the reason why I play the ATGM carriers, if I am playing them, is because what I get out of them is spading them, but also if I have dailies and stuff which line up with them. So if I have SPG kills, I also want to try and spade stuff at the same time. So I'm like focusing on multiple things, so it makes it a bit easier. But if you are like a player who doesn't, you know, focus like that like I do, then just don't worry about that stuff, you know, just just go play other stuff and enjoy yourself, you know, you'll have a better time. The way that they will learn that these things are bad, because obviously statistics ain't helping. If people stop playing them and everybody just, you know, kind of cuts it off apart from a small minority, maybe they'll learn that these things ain't too good. You know, maybe that'll happen, and maybe they'll just move on. But who knows? You know, I'd also like them to revert the ATGM changes, or obviously the BR changes. One of the two works the best, whichever one they feel like. Then we have Mr. UC Tour. Is that supposed to mean something? I feel like I'm getting clowned on by something here. Been thinking about how gouging could improve the tank destroyers in game. A bit sad that they currently have no function other than a lower SP cost than mediums. My idea is that if tank destroyers kills a target spotted by a light tank, the tank destroyer player also gets a lowered SP cost on their CAS. This isn't really as powerful as the scanning mechanic, but at least it's something. Should also add a bit to the teamwork aspect of the game by having tank destroyers and light tanks further encouraged work together. So if they get the hey Dan, nice to see you. 2025. So the idea is if you get the according to intelligence thing, you get more score and more SLNRP than others. I like that one actually. Yeah. So that kind of encourages both playstyles, right? Like that kind of encourages the idea of, you know, working together, but also encourages the idea of, you know, actually playing stuff to its strengths. And you could kind of do it in tandem, right? Like you have a light tank and a SPG working together. Yeah, that would be a nice little soft buff, I think. It's giving a bit more rewards for a bit more teamwork stuff. Yeah, why not? Sounds good to me. So we have TK221. Hello, Tech. Thank you for the videos, always fun to watch. Now on to some improvements, additions I've been thinking for in the game. Goddamn. Higher speed points for helicopters, reason 1 minute after I spawned, started the match, I got killed by an Mi-24, well I can't take my Alouette. It's because it has missiles compared to rockets. That's pretty much it. Missiles will always be favoured over rockets because they're easier to use. Another thing to also mention is blanket increases basically means that the vehicles that are already bad will never be played, whereas now at least they have a slight reason to be played, which is at the start of a match. So yeah, what is better is targeting vehicles which are overperforming of a class, not a whole class itself. Destructible decorations, yeah, I agree, they're doing that though, so that'll be nice to see when that comes in. Hopefully it comes in pretty soon. Like, I think they're doing it... in, is it the next major update or another major update? I can't remember which one it is. I'd have to look. I know they're doing it at some point. I just can't remember when. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The bullets just missed. He just went through my bullets. That hurts, man. And again. But yeah, the destructible decorations, I mean, it doesn't really matter on most of the decorations, but on the bushes it obviously does, right? So if they do the bushes one, that would be cool. And also at the same time, the other decorations kind of as like a byproduct would be nice as well. So yeah, they could definitely do that. But that's already like in the thing, right? Return of historical weekly decals. Well, yeah, of course. That'd be fantastic. That would be really nice to see. Hopefully they do it at some point. But I'm sure that they will. Like, I think Oxy said in like January they were gonna do it, so I'd be kind of surprised if they don't. I was wondering why no one was coming to help me, and then I've realized my whole team's just dead, so never mind. These are the situations which kind of make me sad, because we outplayed this guy. We had 2 kill shots on him, we shot when we should have, and then the rounds just missed. And then you do shit like that, like... Jesus Christ. War Thunder in a nutshell, right there. Fair number of players in each team. There are some games when you or your enemy is 2 or 3. Yeah, I think that's fair. There is a bit of an issue with that, though. I think what happens in scenarios like that, because, like, obviously, things are set up in a way so you will have stuff being equal, right? Like, they don't purposely make teams unequal is basically the way to put it. So for me, that happens when people disconnect from the game, and then there aren't people to replace them with. Like, it's an issue which happens, but it's not like an issue that happens a lot. So, and it's also down to not the game, it's down to, you know, people's connections screwing up. I don't know how you fix that unless, like, you put AIs in, I suppose. But AIs in ground forces specifically are just fodder. So I don't think that would work. Maybe for other game modes. Customizable hangar. Player can choose from offered number of hangars. Oh shit, I missed it. Number of hangars. Water warships, 3D avatar, repeated penetration holes, basically if you shoot the same thing. I mean, I've talked about all of these in the past. I agree with all of them. Like, I'd be fine with them. Like, I think more customization is required when it comes to War Thunder. I think people need to feel more in tune with, like, their profile itself. When I think about a lot of the other successful games, the major thing that they focus on is this idea of being linked to your service record, and not just linked like through stats, but also linked through how everything looks and how everything feels. So War Thunder has a long way to go with that. They've done it. They have started actually improving it. Like, if you've realized, like, over the last few years, one of the big things they've been doing is obviously the profile pictures, right? The profile pictures are something which are very important, and give yourself, like, individuality to, like, the profile. And also they linked it to the forums, so if you have a post on the forums, you know, you have your profile from there. So generally I think that's okay. I think that's fine. There just needs to be a bit more, you know? Like, just a few more ideas in that way. So then we have Bob. So let's have a look at Bob's thing. Gaijin should add more game modes, but in a smart way. Da-da-da. Very few people keep asking for the game mode. A lot of people want, and I think Gaijin should add it. Gaijin should add a game mode that is more historical mission driven, so you are, for example, defending against a bomb formation in air, or sinking a carrier group in naval or advanced over a certain area for ground, whatever fits. So, like, basically the single missions, but for multiplayer, I mean, they could do that. Like, you know, that's something that's been discussed previously. Right, and then, what's the next bit? This game mode obviously needs a lot of help to keep it alive, but I have some ideas that as well. The biggest problem is obviously the player count, so it should be PvE to cut the needed player base in half immediately, and it should be balanced for the groups of 4 to 8 people to cut the needs players in half again. Then, to help with matchmaking time even more, it should only be available in the events tab, and only like 6 events at a time, 2 per vehicle type, 1 high, low tier, 1 with specific vehicles each set. For example, let's see, it's quite a big piece of text. So, for example, one day has NATO Cold War fighting in Iraq and Axis World War II defending against the invasion of Sicily, and the next day has Warsaw Pact Cold War fighting in Korea and Allies World War II advancing in North Africa, and so on. Rewards should be lowered drastically, but maybe cut the repair costs so you can't lose a cell, but you won't earn a lot of RP in SL because it's PvE and it shouldn't be a game mode, grinding, but just have fun, a bit of co-op. To incentivize more people to play this game mode, it should be coupled with titles, decals, decorations, avatar skins, or anything really that are exclusive to the game mode. They could also link some of the events on pages history to make it even more historical, so instead of using the vehicles from a random historical battle, you could play the historical battle. In the end, I feel like it would make a bunch of people happy, could replace the single-player missions the most people ignore because there's no reason to play them, and it wouldn't require a crazy amount of work from Guardian side since they already did something like that for events. And almost forgot about the best part, since it's PvE, crazy high altitude long range CAS won't be a thing, so that should make some people happy. I'm not sorry for the long posts to deal with it. Wow. Rude. But yeah, it's not a bad idea. Like we've talked about it a few times. Like the idea of expanding like the single player stuff or the dynamic campaign stuff to more areas of the game. So we can get it done quicker, or like get it, or actually have more fun with it instead of like the standard PvE assault, which can be kind of boring. So yeah, I'm fine with ideas like that. I kind of like the idea of selling packs for like $1 to $2 to $5. And what it does is it gives you, like 5 to 10 separate missions that you have to use specific vehicles in, but if you haven't unlocked them, you can still use them, so it gives you like an incentive to give it a go. And then there's the monetary angle, and you can work out how much people are interested in stuff like this, and then if they complete the missions, then once again they get like camos, as you said, or titles or decorations. I'm completely fine with stuff like that, like I'm completely fine with all that. And I hope they do add stuff like that in. I think the PvE part of the mode is the one which is the most underrepresented when it comes to the game, and one which generally should be more kind of looked upon as a positive like force in it. So all those ideas sound great, and let's kind of push forward with it. I'd probably extend the amount of time that the events are capable of. I would also get community members involved. Basically say, hey, we'll give you like X amount of money for creating single missions using our game. Boom. And then they can create the basis of it, and then one of the Gaijin devs can take the basis, talk to the people about it, work out how they made it, and then maybe make it slightly better or improve graphics or whatever they want to do, right? Make it more sustainable. There you go. That'd be nice, Very true, Papa Stalin. But no, I like this one, So then we have Soviet 20. We're still missing a lot of float planes and experimental vehicles. I find it odd why they're placing common production vehicles sometimes as event vehicles and not regular tech tree, though. SPGs, heavies would fare well with infantry, especially if you had a situation where you had to request infantry support at cap points, wait a few seconds, and have them follow you and set up next to your vehicle, but would only imply other situations. Would they entrench sandbags themselves? Are they going to follow or become set? Right, okay. Let's talk about this once and for all. when it comes to stuff like this. Oh dear. So all of these ideas, when it comes to putting infantry down and seeing what they do and where they move and where they do all this stuff, sound fantastic, right? They sound really fun. They sound like, oh, you know, you're basically adding mechanics on top of stuff we already have, so it doesn't really take anything from the gameplay. It's like, yeah, that's fair. You know, it can work very well in that way. But one thing you've also got to understand with like this whole setup is this is not Men of War. This is not Company of Heroes. This is not an RTS game, right? This is a PvP, like, attack, defend game. So all of these like scenarios that you're wishing up in your head of what infantry will do or won't do won't happen. They'll just get artilleried or they'll get bombed. And also you need the initial setup to be able to set up all these infantry members. So therefore you have to have the initial advantage to be able to set all this stuff up. If you end up doing that, then you just give yourself an increased advantage, which is one of the biggest issues with the game. There are games where you can do stuff like this in. As I said, stuff like Men of War, stuff like Gates of Hell, Company of Heroes, all of these RTS games, right? They're not War Thunder. In War Thunder, none of this stuff would work. The great thing as well is that the War Thunder CDK exists. You can download it and you can create your own missions. And in War Thunder, there is infantry. It does exist. So, make some. See what happens. Playtest it. See what goes forward. Have a bit of fun. Why not? Then you can see what happens with it. You know? Be pretty positive, wouldn't it? I think. I don't really know how I'm missing here, but there you go. That was kind of weird. Okay. Alright. So then we have Abby. Good old Abigail X Cake. You chose Archer last time as your DPS. Oh, shit. Which one would you choose for your tank? Dark Knight, Shadow Powers, and Edginess included. Paladin, Warrior Berserker, or Gunbreaker. You get a revolver gunsword. Also, the 279 is totes balanced. Very true. It's one of the most balanced vehicles in the game. It just turns out the rest of the game is unbalanced. The 279 is the balanced bit, right? So, we're not going to go edgy boy. Like, we're not... I can't remember... What was the edgy boy class in World of Warcraft? Does anybody remember? The Illidan's of the world? So we're not going to go edgy boy. Whenever I play games like either brawlers, or whenever I play like MOBAs, or whenever I play like hero shooters, or whatever you want to call them, the ones I always enjoyed playing were the tanks. So the guys with like the huge shields, or the guys who had decent stuns. So then what you could do is you could kind of set up the DPS to be able to annihilate everything, right? So stuff like the Dark, you know, the Dark Knight, I mean, it's just going to be, as you said, it's just going to be an edgy boy, right? So that ain't going to work too well. Then you also have the Paladin. I mean, the Paladin kind of fills that role, but also Paladins usually, like, they have, like, you know, the whole magical power thing going on, which is fine, but I don't like the idea of relying on mana instead of just, you know, strength. So I would have to go with Warrior Berserker. So not Berserker, just standard Warrior. Just big dude with big shield, you know, kind of like the guy out of Overwatch, or the guy out of whatever it's called, the Paladins. You know which one I mean, like that dude, like big shield and big mallet, can stun. I really enjoyed playing that in stuff like Vermintide 2 as well. There's a guy who has like a shield and a sword, just like block all the damage and then like smash people with the sword. Like, just tanks in general are super fun for me. Like, I really kind of work well with like that kind of setup. Like the positioning and all of that stuff. Yeah, Fernando, exactly. Love me some Fernando. Haven't played Paladins in ages though. It was a pretty fun game. So then we have Barandamir. Nice. Pretty cool name that. Hey Tech, in my opinion, spawn zones should be higher in terrain. Nearly all maps have high terrain positions that look at the spawn zones. This could prevent spawn camping issue. Also, big objects could be added between zones. So there wouldn't be sniping from zone to zone. Right now, this game's biggest issue is spawn camping. Also, destroying an aircraft should reward more. What's your opinion about the suggestions? Sure, yeah, increased rewards for dealing with CAS. It might incentivize people more to play AAs, obviously, which is good. Or just, you know, incentivize people to play America with their good old 50 cals. The idea of the putting, like, you know, the spawns higher than everything, yeah, I'm fine with it. It's better than the other way around. Definitely. The maps which are the most unbalanced are usually the ones where you have like a pit in like the middle, which like a high point in the middle that can kind of like hit up everything. So I'm kind of fine with that idea. I think that would be quite good actually. Then also at the same time, I think like you could do it flat. You know, you don't have to go crazy on it. The main thing for me is actually the main thing for me is actually just making sure that there is some physical presence between the other two, or between the base and the people trying to spawn camp, or people learning how to, as we talked about, people learning how to actually effectively like counter spawn camping. Like that would also be a pretty big deal, I think. So I'm just dealing with a squad, so I'm concentrating a bit more. But I agree with the height thing. It's much better than the valley thing, which, you know, obviously causes issues. Oh no, he had much better ping than I did. God damn it. Or maybe not. Maybe I just fucked up. Oh well, we're going this way. I can maybe turn there. The spawn zone should be the entire strip at the back of the map, and you can click on the map to where you choose from. Yeah, sure, why not? Don't think that would solve all the issues, but it would definitely help. I don't know how I'm gonna do this and also read the next question. I kind of need to keep certain buttons on certain things. Alright, come on. Just need a bit of lift. No, I don't have any lift. Because I have that slightly yellow wing, that basically means that I have no lift on the other side. Very sad. Anyway, so next one. Cat Top. Hey Tech. How do you think Gaijin is going to rework naval progression? I don't have high hopes for missile ships coming without making the compression and naval worse. The BBs and CBs is acting like a progression cap for each line. There is almost no way any missile cruisers or destroyers will be placed after them. Most don't have the firepower survivability to simply justify it. As Guardian keeps pushing the most BBs and CBs up in BR, which it doesn't seem like they're willing to, Naval might never make it to 9.0 plus without major changes. I mean, if it doesn't need to be pushed up, then it doesn't need to, right? Hey, Resk, nice to see you. Like, the people have these fictitious ideas of what BR ranges, like, different areas should have in the game. It's very hard to actually work out where stuff should be. You just have kind of pipe dreams. The thing that they're doing with naval progression, if you haven't worked out with missile stuff and also other different vehicles, they're just creating another line for them. So they've done it with these guys, right? With the Soviets. And then if you have a look at, like, for the Germans, they have the Von der Tann and the Scharnhorst, which are just by themselves over here for no reason. The US has always had 3 lines. Britain, once again, like when it comes to these guys, they've just added these in. So they're trying to add in like 3 lines to everything. You can see here right now with the Japanese, they're not there yet. And then with Italy, obviously they're nowhere near there. And for France, I mean, lol. And also at the same time for coastal, they're trying to do the same thing. So with Germany, they added the Gross, the Hugin, and the Fail. All of these are newer vehicles. For USA, they have the King, Queen, the Cyclone, which are newer vehicles. These guys have always had 3, but once again, look, they're just missing out here. And then Britain, they only have 2. Japan only has 2. So what they're doing is they're trying to make it so everybody has 3 lines. So that's the naval progression change. And then also, what they've been doing alongside of that, so not just that, is I think what they're going to do is they're going to do what they're doing with ground and helicopters. They just haven't fully coded it yet. So where with you can research stuff like coastal vehicles with blue order vehicles or vice versa. I don't think they're bringing in like crazy, research or BR changes in that way. Like when it comes to like missile vehicles coming in or whatever. I honestly think they're just doing it so if you want to research coastal vehicles, you can do it with blue water vehicles or the other way around. Because right now there's a real issue in naval where once they added in blue water, there was a lot of people who just play blue water and don't have any coastal vehicles. And then they started complaining about the fact that they don't have the lower tier or they don't have the coastal vehicles, so they can't cap the zones, so they just lose because they can't cap anything. That's why they added in the hydroplanes to try and fix that. But not every nation or not every vehicle has hydroplanes, so that would be something that they could add to make it a little bit easier. And I actually agree with that addition. I think that addition would be fantastic for the game and overall fantastic to generally add. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what they're gonna do. I don't think it's anything to do with like missile additions or missile cruiser additions or whatever. I know people think that's the next logical step and they've already gone towards those things, but that doesn't matter to me when it comes to how the research is going to set up. Adding a type of vehicle does not modify how the tree works, right? What modifies it is how is the fact that people are not playing specific vehicles because they're finding it hard to research or not able to, right? So then we have Maxwell. All right, there we go. Hello, Tech. I enjoy the talks and hope you're good. Yeah, I'm doing all right. However, at around 10:58, you said the 76 Jumbo is in a sad place. I disagree with you. It is one of my favorite tanks, and I've never had any problems with it. Yes, there are a lot of tanks that ignore its armor, but I would take the Jumbo over a Bulldog or a Panther any day of the week. There seems to be this belief that when a heavy tank has no armor, it is automatically bad, which, as I've noticed, only exists for tanks in mid to high tiers for some reason. From my experience, this can go about with not effective armor and be successful. We live in a world where the SU-122 is at 5.3 after all. I don't think the 122 is at 5.3, is it? I think it's at 3.3 or something. No, the Jumbo is in a sad place because there are a bunch of vehicles around it that are much better to play for the Americans. Like, if you want to play a heavy tank for America, you play the T-34, or you play, the T-26, the T-26E5 or the Super Pershing, because you have light tanks to back it up as well. Yeah, maybe the ISU 122. That could be fair. But the simple fact is Yeah, the reason why the 76 Jumbo went up is because of the stabilizer. And because it was like being up on Tigers. Oh my god. Okay, that was really bad. But it basically went up because it was bullying those guys. And also at the same time, yeah, you would take it over a Panther because the Panthers are 5.760s. This thing's a 6.3. You'd take it over the Bulldog because the Bulldog is terrible. Like, imagine, like, compare it to a decent 6.3 vehicle, right? Like, do you take it over an IS-2 1944? For example? Maybe, if you like the reload, but the IS-2 44 does everything better than you. Apart from the reload. See, that's like the difference, right? Like, even without a stabilizer, I would take the IS-2 over the Jumbo any day of the week. So it's just, you know, it's just what people enjoy and what people go to. The 76 Jumbo is not necessarily bad because of its individual stats, even though some of its individual stats are bad. It's the fact that its lineup is nowhere near as powerful as other nations, and also at the same time, there are American lineups which are around that lineup which are much more fun to play. So that's pretty much it. Then we have Tidal, or Tisol, sorry. I think they should add different game modes like capture the flag and remove others, such as 1 capture point matches or 2 ones that teams already has capped. A lot of standard game modes that you see in FPSs rely on unlimited respawns. War Thunder doesn't have unlimited respawns, which is why stuff like capture the flag wouldn't work. Also, once a team gets an advantage, even with unlimited respawns in War Thunder, it would be very hard to be able to take that back in a standard setup like that. If they want to do some esports stuff around that, sure. They have actually done game modes like that in the past. There was one where you had to like capture Christmas presents in Naval or something like that. That was actually pretty fun. So something like Naval, it could work because the speed is there, but also you'd have to an arcade and run it about. I'd be fine with something like that. I wouldn't be fine with it in ground. Aviation maybe, but yeah, once people get away, it's kind of hard to deal with. So then we have Myco V. Years ago. 4 and years ago. I wanted historical accuracy, but as the years went by, I preferred game balance and enjoyment. I would not even mind blueprint vehicles. Nothing crazy or fake tanks like in World of Tanks, but the more well-known and understood vehicles such as the Low. I would also like to see more prototype vehicles. The Kubinka Museum has untold troves of unique vehicles, 416, SU-14, 704 to name a few. There are also variants of the SU-5 or the 122 Howitzer, 152. In the West, there is the T-37, which is the vehicle that would develop into the T-41. The T-23, another M4 replacement prototype that would evolve into the T-25 and eventually the T-26. The turret and gun from the T-23 is even the same as found on the 76mm Shermans. Another rocket vehicle would be the T-40 Whiz-Bang and times 20 180mm rockets. Japan, France, Italy, and my main nation, Sweden, are all also suffering from a lack of GAP vehicles. Sweden and France in particular have very little to nothing in between 4.3 and radar AA. Sweden having a ZSU-57-2 at 7.0 is not enough, and France has nothing. The AMX-13 DCA and LVK-42 are not very good AAs. They are very good flanking ambushing TDs, but poor AAs due to the scope zoom as well as a complete lack of ammunition for the Swedish one. These are just a few topic suggestions I could think of. I really enjoy your content, Tech, as well as mostly the content creators of War Thunder, Bow, Fly, Odd, Spookston, and Tech. You're all great and keep up the great work. Sorry. So, yeah, there's a lot of vehicles they could add to the game, and I'm sure over the years they will. I'm looking forward to a lot of them, especially from the major nations. Gap fillers are a problem for the minor nations, but the way that you solve that is through sub-nations for those nations. We can see the effectiveness of this in Sweden. So, you know, with Sweden having Finland, helping out a lot with their ground stuff, and I'm sure will help out in the future when it comes to their aviation stuff in a much better place than it was previously. So, you know, more vehicles is always nicer to see. Hopefully they can make the research as equal to the other areas of the game. And at the same time, yeah, historical accuracy is a bit of a rough one, if I'm honest with you. It's not one which really works in the game, and really not one which can really, you can't really go anywhere from it, especially as a Sweden main. It's nice that you understand this. The low is also an interesting point. So I know we talk about like vehicles which are much more kind of understood, or much more like what's the word? So ones which are in a situation where they're like much more like, I suppose, definite as a vehicle. There's a problem with this though. And the problem is, if you actually have a look at the low as a project, or the Lover, or the Lion, to everybody else, there was actually a ton of different revisions of the low over like the year span of it being designed. So the real question is, which one or which nation do you go for? Which version of the low do you go for? Because there's millions. I can show you, Yag. There you go. Oh, that's not the right one, sorry. There you go. So that's the problem with it. Like, which one do you pick? So even a vehicle like that has so many different iterations. Which one do you go for? Do you go for the one which is, do you go for the one which is the one from World of Tanks, which is the one which is most well known, or do you go for some of the other drafts, right? I mean, technically with the Panther 2, there's like, I think, is it 6 or 7 different derivatives of the Panther 2? That was kind of at least designed. So like, which one do you go for in that? Like, it's tough, right? Like, it's tough to work out which ones you should or shouldn't go for in that regard. But I'm fine with them adding them as long as they make sense. Like, I see it as kind of as a thing that's just going to keep coming, right? Like, they're just going to keep adding these things over and over and over again. I wish they didn't, but they are going to, continue as you go forward. Right. So then we have SK. Right. I'm technically done with the star now, but we're just going to let it tick over just so you can see it happen. So we have SK TEC. With Gadgeon's recent transition to more transparency with the roadmaps and such, do you think that we'll see a roadmap for vehicle additions that would show planned releases to as much as 6 months to a year in the future? I would think event vehicles would be excluded, so there would be still an element of surprise or anticipation for events. Why I would want this is that if I knew what X-Plane is coming to Y Tree at rank Z, then I would target to grind it if I was not already there. Your thoughts on why the Snell doesn't do this, or at least hasn't done it since I've been playing? Exactly why you've put this right here. So, I think what they want is people to try and focus more on the idea of oh my god, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They're trying to not influence what people play as much as they can, right? So they're trying to make everything more neutral instead of like favoring certain things over another. So if people know what's coming in the future in that way, what they'll end up doing is they will just target grind that nation. And as you said, they will just target grind that. That completely affects the meta. Think about when certain vehicles are announced coming into certain trees in War Thunder, and when the first dev server drops, and let's say, I don't know, the MiG-29 has R-73s on it, and everyone's like, oh my god, look at the MiG-29, these missiles are crazy. So then everybody targets, grinds the USSR, completely screwing up the matchmaker, and completely like hammering down that area. So then it completely shifts the meta within like 2 or 3 days, and everybody just goes nuts. Then they remove the R-73 and everybody goes, oh, the F-16, oh, that looks really cool. Okay, let's target grind America, and then let's do this. Oh, they've added a better version to Japan. All right, let's go to Japan. Boo, 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 boo. And then you just have people just like going all over the place all the time, which means that the meta can never settle. Now, with the way that they've set up everything, the meta can hardly settle anyway, but adding more factors to it would just completely annihilate any semblance of that, and this would be one of those factors, right? I also think they really believe in the whole idea of, you know, teasing and marketing and doing all those things, and it seems to work pretty well. You know, they seem to be pretty positive in that way, and everything seems to work pretty good, so I don't see why they would change it. I think being transparent with like economy or like BR changes is good, but when it comes to new content, I highly doubt they're going to be more open about it, just because of, you know, the stuff we talked about before, which is them being what's the word? Which is them being a lot more kind of like rigid about it, because they try and time stuff to be available at certain times, right? So we have like Yukuji again. There we go. I believe that if Gaijin redid and added more campaign missions with less of a chore board and more of a battlefield campaign idea for set world campaigns, for example, Desert Storm would have the coalition air force bombing ground targets, and then you go to the ground forces and fight from different perspectives, each member of the coalition and so on. It's an idea that can be really good, but the effort to do it right now would also need some type of payment to make all the effort worth it. What's your opinion? When it comes to, right, okay, if the issue is payment, then therefore the inspiration or aspiration is not there. One of the things that's super important when it comes to individuals is kind of showing their worth, and if they like ideas and like pushing things forward, the first thing you have to do is to at least create a prototype. When you have a look at many inventors or many aspiring people, they usually work for like 1 to 2 to 3 years on ideas to be able to try and knuckle them down and then push forward with them, right? Like they don't just like turn up and go, hey, give me money for an idea that I haven't even thought of or how to put together yet. You need to have some kind of like working slight prototype to even think about like getting funding from people. So the fact is we're not even at that point. If we're already at the point where it's like, okay, I've got this idea of basically spoofing what this other game did and put it into the game, but I don't know how to do it and I want to get paid to do it, to work out how to do it and then do it, then it's a dead starter. What you have to do is just create at least something to show that it can be done, right? And some people in the community do that, but these ideas need to get pushed forward. So it doesn't even matter what the idea is. It just needs a simple system of actually working out how to do it, not how to sit there and talk about it, but just do it, you know? Don't get stuck in the discussion stage. Just do it. Listen to Shire. Shire's a very important individual. Even if you don't agree with him on... Oh my Jesus Christ. What is this? Away with you, Valbeggar. Right, okay. Hey Tech, I'm one of the many lurkers that enjoys your content, so I thought this format would be perfect for me to actually leave a comment and interact with the community. I had 3 ideas that I'd like to hear your input on. Only the first one is original, the other 2 being my 2 cents about subjects already talked about, so read them if you have the time. I always have the time, but we do have a policy of 1 question or 1 thought per thing now. Otherwise, you know, we end up reading novels. So it's very nice that you put this all together and it looks really nice. What I'd like you to do is Control C on this point here and then stick it in this comment section and then wait for the next one after and then Control C this one and then put it in the next comment section, so therefore we can look over them. Otherwise, if I let this type of format happen, I'm going to be sat here for years going through everything. So we have balancing Band-Aid. The mouse problem came up in many of the previous videos, and that reminded me of an idea I had a while back that I personally don't see anyone talking about because it would be controversial. Seeing how Gaijin always brings up historical accuracy when it comes to balance, why not use that as a solution as well? I'm talking about limiting the use of super heavy tanks to 1 or 2 per team at a time. By the same logic, we could also add the same restriction for the prototype paper tanks as well, like the SHT, they weren't mass produced. Thus, the same way it wouldn't make sense for you to see 5 mouses derping around in a platoon, it would make sense to see 5 Tiger 2 105s. Hey Bruce, nice to see you. The same limitations could be applied to other classes as well, but in a more lax manner. Like, for example, imagine if you will a world of LVL 100, level 100 KV1E abusers is not able to play in his shiny seal clipping crutch because the newbies choose 5 heavies already, so now he has to play with something else. This is basically just like the World of Tanks, the World of Tanks way of doing it, right? Now, I'm aware of the problems this kind of solution would raise in the game and among the community, but at the end of the day, the same community always complains about this subject without coming with a solution. I wouldn't know how to do it right since I'm the one with the data. This is why I call it a band-aid solution at best. In your experience, would something like this work? The concept already appeared in World War mode and people don't seem to complain there. And yes, I thought about the restrictions before World War was a thing, in case people wondered. A lot of people complained in World War mode, including most of the major squads that were in it, because of the fact that the game was so unbalanced. Facing, it was like AMX 13s versus T62s or something like that, so you couldn't even frontally pen them. That was Chinese farm when it started. It was changed for obvious reasons. But yeah, there was a lot of imbalance in World War mode. The reason why you don't hear about it is because a lot of people have just straight up weren't bothered by it or just decided to not even discuss it because it was so ridiculous. The helicopters were completely broken. And the helicopters were completely broken in it as well for different reasons. But yeah, the limiting factor in World War mode works because you're in like a separate scenario. The one thing that Gaijin has said many times is they don't really like limiting people when it comes to the vehicles that they can take. And also at the same time, this would annoy a lot of people. I know it seems like it wouldn't, but it would. And we can see this because we used to have a game mode called World War II Chronicles. And World War II Chronicles was an event where you had, it was in the events tab, okay? It was in the events tab. And also, it was one of those which was limited on specific vehicles. So you had to get a certain amount of SP to spawn in a vehicle, and if a certain amount of vehicles was like done or was like set up, then you weren't able to spawn in that vehicle. That game mode no longer exists, and that event no longer exists because everybody would just play one of the sides and not play the other side because it was the dominant side. So you either decided to get yourself beaten up over and over again, or you would play, something, or you would just wait in a queue for 10 minutes to get into a game where you just stomp the enemy, right? So obviously that's not great at the end of the day. So those were like the options, and that had limitations, and people didn't like them, and all of that stuff. And also the question is, how do you pick who actually gets the vehicles? Do you just do it by whoever turns up first? Well, then you're just kind of screwing people who already have a disadvantage because they don't have as good PCs as people. How do console players ever get in one of those vehicles, right? And what if people want to squad together and play them? The best way to solve these issues is just put them up in BR. Put them at a point where they are pretty much useless, and if people want to play them, they can do, but also they don't affect the massive matchmaker. The thing about the mouse is there isn't other nations that have similar vehicles to it. It's a unique vehicle in itself. Nobody has any of these super heavies at the same level as the mouse. Nobody built anything like that because it was a completely ridiculous idea when it was built. So the idea for me for the fix is just literally just put it up to 8.3 and just say, yeah, there you go, you can play it, but you're just going to get donked in it. But at least it exists in the matchmaker if you want to, right? Then we have Tysol again for his third comment. High tier ground needs larger maps. We already talked about this. Then we have Cuban Spy. Keep up the work, Daddy Tech. Anytime. Thank you, Shay. Then we have Likey Cut G for his third comment too. For dealing with the team that's losing badly in a match for ground RB, I believe an artillery barrage that walks in a 180 degrees, come around the spawn, and goes out of the spawn to 800 by 1,000 to utterly rip the winning team away from the losing team's spawn. Sure, it's an extreme way to deal with it, but as you say, c'est la vie. Sure. Walking artillery barrage. Sure, that sounds fun. Let's do that. Why not? I think there might be a few issues. But yeah. Why not? Yeah, c'est la vie. French. So we have Bam Bam again. Thank you for reading my comments, and Heavy Tanks DD's SPGs could reinforce the points instead of IFEs like I was stating in my previous comment. Questions. Do you think stealth would ever be a feature in the game, since only America and NATO countries would be so much better than stuff from Russia and China in the reduction of the radar cross section? And if you do, how do you think it will be implemented? I mean, it kind of already... We do have visibility already in the game. Like, it does already exist in it. So, in its own way. I think they would just do it like as they've already done. They would just change the percentage of visibility on the vehicles if they wanted to implement it. I don't think they should, but yeah, they can do. Struggling to get kills in naval. Any tips? Don't focus on kills for start. Just focus on doing damage and also shoot for ammo racks with AP. But yeah, they could just change the visibility percentages. Don't question. Do you think China will get an Abrams in the future because Taiwan's getting an M1A2? Yeah, I think they will. Nowadays I'm just open to the possibility of everything happening, just because pretty much everything has happened in the past. So anything's possible now. And very last thing, when are they going to fix console spectating camera? I didn't even know it was an issue. So it might be worth checking if it's been bug reported or not. If it's been bug reported, then they'll get to it. If not, then they obviously probably don't know about it, right? That's a bit of an issue. So then we have user, blah, 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 blah. All you said about IFEs and infantry is absolutely reasonable. Maybe infantry should be attached to unarmed transports or chain guns on top of them and actually be playable. Maybe we should make only infantry able to cap points. This would make sense. After each type of unit gets its certain role, infantry caps points, Helis, planes, tanks, and IFEs cover them. Or just stop adding something to the game which doesn't need to be added. This type of mentality is what creates massive imbalance in the game. Sometimes it's okay to say no. Okay? Sometimes you don't need to add everything into the game. You don't need every facet of warfare. Think about drones. Did we need drones? No. No, we didn't. We didn't need them at all. Are they in the game? Yeah, of course they're in the game. Have they been a positive for the game? No. Stop adding things to the game that don't need to be added. Hey Vivid, nice to see you. There is, we're doing a recording right now, but so the in-game audio you hear is from the hangar. These are some highlights in the background. Thank you for the raid, Craig. That's very kind of you. So we have God Gaming Network. They honestly need to bring back to old spawns where once you're in their spawn you have 20 seconds to get out or you die, like in Sim. I honestly hate certain maps because spawn camping is so horrible right now. Doesn't matter if they're 3,000 meters or 10 meters, spawn camping is spawn camping. True, so if they bring back that thing that you're talking about, it doesn't actually solve the issue, so never mind. You've hit the nail on the head, and also at the same time completely missed the point. Because if, let's say you bring back that thing, it doesn't matter. Because they, once again, they just sit outside of the area. Which is what they do now, anyway. So they're not targeted. So it doesn't fix it. It didn't fix it during the time, and it doesn't fix it now. The way you fix this stuff is countering those positions. I'm sick of talking about spawn camping. Then we have Blinker. What do you think about new objectives in the most popular game modes? Right now, all ground RB is pretty much capping points and destroying enemies, and all air RB battles are just destroying enemy planes, doing a bit of ground pounding, base bombing. I don't really know about naval, but it seems similar to ground RB. Do you think that objectives such as attacking defending convoys in ground RB and attacking defending bombers in air RB would contribute to more varied gameplay and give vehicles some more use? No, it would basically add a ton of imbalance into the game, and the reason I know that is because it's been tried multiple times. So World War mode, they added in convoys, which were player controlled, and also player controlled attackers. They were some of the most broken parts of World War mode, because you could just annihilate an infantry convoy or tie up an infantry convoy for an incredibly long time and very easily, because it turns out planes are very good against ground vehicles. Also at the same time, you already have them on a bunch of the missions in RRB. The trains, for example, there's a bunch of maps which already have these things. People just don't see them. When it comes to ground and this idea of attacking defending convoys, this attack and defense is not balanced, right? If you have more defenders than aggressors, even on a mobile target, the defenders are going to win because they can set up defensive positions and camp you from where you're coming from. The only time an aggressor will win, as we saw in World War mode, was when they get a nice spawn where you can basically just look over the convoy and just wait for it to come and then attack it, or you just go and smash the enemy in their spawn because you have superior numbers, or you just have better players, which, you know, you can't really guarantee on in standard games. These asymmetric game modes don't work in a game like War Thunder because you don't have unlimited respawns and you don't have unlimited resources like you do in games like TF2, COD, or any FPS that you're trying to get stuff from. People would just leave if they got on one side because they knew that they were going to lose. That's what used to happen on the break game mode a lot. People, if they lost the first point, would just J out and leave. Or they would J out and spawn next to the people who just capped. Also on the topic of the Swiss Hunter, I think that Gaijin added it to Germany because they misplanned something somewhere and gave Britain the Sea Harrier FRS-1 as a squadron vehicle. I think they should have added the Sea Harrier as a tech tree vehicle and the Hunter as a squadron one, both for Britain. That you don't misplan stuff like that. That doesn't happen. The reason why they gave the Hunter to Germany is because they didn't have a Maverick thrower. And now they have a Maverick thrower. As I said, it's not to do with what nation or anything like that. It's down to game balance. You don't just misplace or misplan like a vehicle like that. It's literally because Germany didn't have something that could fire Mavericks. And people for the longest time were saying we need vehicles which can fire Mavericks or fire, you know, stuff like that. Because if you have a look, the good old Hunter has FLZ LWF LB82s, which are TV guided heat warheads with a launch range of 23 kilometers. Wonder if anybody knows what those are. And we have Kobe Hales. Giving the point reinforcement infantry to heavy tanks could make sense. At least the Churchill was considered an infantry support vehicle over a standard combat. Thought I'd appreciate these infantry guarding the spawn point. Stop giving more people snowball effects. Talked about it before. Airsoft faction. RBEC needs to return. Some people enjoy long-form game modes with RB mouse aim. Also makes all the planes actually usable. Sure, why not? Bring it back. What they should do is they should bring it back as a weekly event. Just like they did before, and when nobody plays it after like 4 or 5 weeks, because why would you? Because most people like to play the standard game modes that already exist. They should then remove it again, and then we should have this exact conversation a year later and 2 years later when people want it to return, of the small minority of the people who actually did play it. So then we could push forward and bring it back again as a weekly event for 2 months, and then just keep going around in a circle because nothing changes. I agree. Then we have IMOM. Just to clarify my simple sim idea, because it got brought up a lot. I don't think it would be a way to get into sim, but just a separate mode that sounds more interesting to me. fair enough. What people should do is they should make these modes in the War Thunder CDK and therefore get people involved. You can actually have sim controls in third-person view. You can also have standard controls in first-person view. You can do these things if you want to set up the game like that. It is possible. And we have Arctic Snow. Had an enemy heli camping right above our heli spawn earlier today. The fact that you can just hover a few meters above you and instantly kill you without a way to defend yourself is just annoying. I agree. There definitely has to be something done, but I have no idea what they could do in that regard. I'm sorry I'm rushing through a lot of these, but unfortunately they have fundamental flaws. So. And we've gone over all of the reasoning over the last eight or whatever it is tech talks, and I don't want to say the same things over and over again. Then we have Titanium Meerkat. Tech, I return with an actual topic of discussion instead of a witty joke. Dun dun dun. Do you think the vehicles with unique setups such as flamethrowers will slowly come to the normal tech trees instead of being stuck as premium event battle pass options? This has slowly been happening. Rocket vehicles with the addition of the Magak Hydra, Racket and Automat, and Oosh. Cheers. I mean, very gradual, if you want to put it like that. But also, you forgot the mighty Acra, which is actually came before all of those vehicles. So don't forget my boy Acra now. Very rude. With the rocket-propelled good old thing. So, yeah, I'm sure they will. It may take a long time, though. We're talking like many years at this point. I think it's more likely they just stay as event vehicles or battle pass vehicles, but you never know. Like, they may, at the same time, do some different stuff with them. But the other thing is there's just not really enough of them to kind of just start throwing around in tech trees. There's a lot of vehicles, unless they change like the way that the damage works with the flamethrower, there's not really a way to set it up in that way. And we have Aldo Caruli. Hey there again, Tech. I waited for the end of the week to ask you a question because I wanted to wait for the BR changes. I played most of the nations at all BRs, and right now I'm having the only real skill issue I've ever experienced in my life. Is it just me, or is the 279 completely busted right now, nuking everything that encounters it in a lower than its BR? I tried some 7.7 to spade during the event, and anything that doesn't have darts basically doesn't stand a chance. The cannon and its weak spots are basically just a roll of the dice because of desyncs or pings, and so my experience, this is really the first time I encounter a huge problem like this. Do you think I'm over-exaggerating? Thank you in advance. No. The vehicle is completely busted and will continue to be busted going forward until they fix it. Basically, I have a series of videos over the next week which is basically just showing how dumb the 279 is, like as a vehicle. Like, it's way too strong, and people are the only people who are saying that it shouldn't be upped in BR are people who are trying to abuse it for this event, and competitive players who shouldn't be listened to when it comes to anything in their life, including anything when it comes to their mentality or general thoughts towards just pretty much anything. Just they just waste breath at the end of the day. So the main thing with the 279 that has to be understood is it is overpowered right now. It is very easy to play, and it is one of those which will not get better with time, right? It's one of those. So if you have a look, right, I'll just change to the other one. There we go. So this is Freeman. This is Freeman, Dog, and Red Ned. So they were playing the 279 last night. Obviously, over this week, you're going to see on the YouTube channel all the games that I played in an afternoon with Freeman. Literally, in this game, they're all in 279s. So between them, let's see, you got 13 kills, 12 kills, that's 25 kills, and then 30, so, 25, so 34 kills and 4 deaths, and 2 nukes. In a game yesterday, or the day before, when Freeman and I were playing, we literally both basically got nukes. And also, at the same time, we did well in all of the other games. we had a combined KD of around about 35 to 2 or 3 in the Object 279 over about 7 to 8, 9 matches. And some of those were full up tiers. There were 2 full up tiers where I ended up with 5 kills in each match with the 279. So people have got to stop telling me that it's not busted. It needs to go up. It needs to. Or it's just gonna ruin the area. So we have also a little request, if it's not too bothersome. For now on, is it possible to put a date as well as your tech talks? It's just quality of life improvement for people like me who enjoy listening to all of your vids, and also the future could be a thing to go back in time with some of your older vids and compare them to the ever-changing meta. Thank you again and keep up the work. Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I could do that. I don't know if it has the date attached to it, but I could put it in the description, like that it was recorded. That could be better. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just stick here. I'll write it down. So date in description. So it just means that you can, yeah, as you said, there's like a lineage. That's a good idea. So we have C76 Caravan. Wouldn't it make more sense to put out the penetration values at the middle distance of 30 degrees when reviewing vehicles and their ammo? It is the distance and angle that is most likely to happen. Yeah, probably, but at the same time, the constant is using the same distance for everything. And since I've used the same distance for everything, if I change now, then it will confuse people. Then we have Jost. Hey! Just a quick reminder that the Sprocket tank building game is likely receiving the big update within the next 3 weeks, according to the dev. It's come a long way from launch. The game's transitioning to War Thunder damage models, and internal modules will become part of the designing. Other various QOL stuff and unannounced additions will be included as well. I'd say it's worth it to have a new look at it and maybe give it some exposure on the channel. Yeah, we'll give it a look. Right now we're doing the Men of War 2 because the beta was there, and then also a few other things as well, which should be quite fun, like going forward. And we have Flying Ostrich. There's Ed Nash's Military Matters, who talks about forgotten aircraft from the Great War to the Cold War. Oh, there you go. That could be pretty fun. Easy. Then we have Sam Hurtlocker. So it sounds like War Thunder just needs to do a whole anti-air update where they just give every nation a whole bunch of anti-airs, because I don't think there's a single nation in the game that doesn't have an AA gap somewhere. But one of the other issues with the fact that everybody wants vehicles for the US, Germany, and USSR is the fact that they've put more time, money, and technology into it than anybody else. So they just have so many more options, which is another reason why they keep getting brought up. Wrong. That's wrong. I don't know how else to put it. Germany specifically. America, very true. USSR, probably true. When it comes to their developments, Germany, definitely not. If you have a look at Britain, for example, and not just ground vehicles, but also their aviation and their naval stuff, from post-World War II, Britain has developed way more stuff than Germany has over the years, especially when you have a look at the whole West-East Germany stuff. Like, it's just not there, you know? Pretty much as simple as that. This is the M113A1 tow. So for me, it's, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Naval also is like just this huge thing that people forget about, and same with helicopters as well. But c'est la vie. Just is how it is. Once again, it's just a chicken or egg scenario. Then we have Isharun. I'd like them to add single-player missions for each vehicle. I mean, I'd like them to add single-player missions, but maybe not every vehicle. I mean, there's over 2,000 now. Take a long time to sort all those out, you know? Like, but yeah, I mean, why not? Like, the more the merrier is probably the best way of putting it. I'll be fine with it. It's just a little bit, you know, a lot of work. So we have Mortis Bjorjesen. Greetings from Sweden. Greetings from Canada. I'd like a reward for collecting all the medals for a nation. It could be something small like a profile picture or a title, but honestly it would make more sense to have the reward by something more special like a vehicle not obtainable through any other way. In all my years of playing the game, I've never seen anyone have all medals for a nation, so this vehicle would be extremely rare. The vehicle could just be a copy-paste with a different skin like the Twitch drop vehicles. The idea of having a vehicle that the top 0.0000001% most dedicated players can own, just for the flex, makes a lot more sense to me at least. What are your thoughts on the idea? The issue with giving stuff to people who already have a lot of stuff is you make it harder for the people who don't have all the stuff to play against. And then you just create this like overwhelming system. And a lot of people will say, well, that's just how the game works, bro. And that's how all games work, bro. And that's fine. But making it worse is not in like my kind of paradigm. I don't want to make stuff like that worse. I would rather something that doesn't affect the matchmaking, especially since it won't just be that most dedicated set of players, because you'll have CCs run around with it too, and obviously make everything go a little bit crazy. So, yeah, that to me is obviously a problem. Kind of with that, I would rather just a profile pic. I don't like, imagine the amount of development time you put into something and it only gets used by not even 0.0001% of the population, but like one person in a million or a billion, like in that, well, you know, just ridiculous amounts, right? There's no point even like just creating a skin for it at that point, just like, because since it's just never going to be seen, like, why put any effort into it at that? You know, it's like if, you know, 10-year login, you get like a unique vehicle. How many people are actually going to get that? So then we have Soul Reaver. IFV, I think, should lose the cheaper plane spawn, scout and drones, and get a troop carrier upgrade. With the upgrade, the IFV have a volume of troops that can be used to reman tanks on the battlefield rather than them having to go to a cap point. Perhaps it could give more than one crewman. The precedent is the Avery class that could repair tanks when only lights could do it. Yeah, the unprecedented is IFVs in real life don't wander around with tank crew in them. As for Sim, you're right, no need for more game modes. The player base is already so diluted. People forget there are already so many game modes for different vehicles, types, with map filters and using chosen servers. The more you dilute that, the worse the wait times, the battle sizes, and general reduction in game satisfaction. Yeah, that's true. So they could maybe, the crew replenishment thing, I would be fine. Now, the E100, it would, way more players would have the E100 than this. Way more. So but nice to see you, Zabby. Hopefully you're doing well, brother. But so when it comes to this troop carrier thing, once again, can we just get away from this idea of infantry in the game? If you want to add in this mechanic, you can do, but just make it so you can only give like one troop member to a vehicle, not like a multitude. Because the problem with doing like a multitude of these things, it ends up in a situation where it ends up in a situation where you have you can have vehicles like sit behind hills and just keep giving them crew over and over and over again, and they can't die. Like, think about, I don't know, like the French autoloaders, for example. Like, you could easily do stuff like that and just constantly repair, constantly just give stuff to those. And I don't want that to happen because it would just be an absolute pain to be able to go up against. So that idea is a no for me. Then we have Lewis Bush. Infantry would make the stuff like the Bradley pretty strong. Yep. Then we have P Mustang. First of the vid, probably not good that I memorized the entire outro, and I've memorized everyone who supports you on Patreon, but that aside, well, I've just changed it, so it's time to learn again. Any tips on researching the US Air Tree? I have the A10A Premium, the H1, but I only have the P62 and the Tech Tree. What do you suggest? Again, love the vids. That's all good. So we can actually have a look at the Tech Tree itself, since, you know, we're live, which is quite nice. So the basic thing with the American tech tree is it's the strongest in the game, which also means it has a bunch of options. Now, for me, I'm not really a huge fan of buying high tier premiums and then just, researching through the tech trees, because what ends up happening is you miss a bunch of experiences, and also by the time you get to the highest echelons, you usually have a bit of a, tough time going. So I think it's better just to research through like the standard stuff. So first of all, you can play arcade for the first like rank or even 2 ranks, and you can play through a bunch of these separate vehicles. You can use the bombers and realistic and kind of relax and get them spaded. By the time you spaded them, you research the next vehicle, and then you just keep doing that over and over and over again. Vehicles that are really good for learning how to actually like dogfight and things are the P40 series of planes. The P39s are a little bit heavy, and the P38s offer a different playstyle, which is a little bit harder to play, but definitely interesting. The F4U1 is broken as a vehicle, but needs a little bit of setup because it takes a while to get to altitude. Once it gets to altitude, it's really, really powerful. At the same time, you have all of these attackers and all of these bombers that you can learn how to do these things in air realistic or air arcade or air sim, no matter what you play at the lower tiers, so therefore you can be more cognizant of what's going on at the higher tiers. Once you get to this area, you should have developed dogfighting skills, you should have developed boom and zoom skills, you should have developed energy skills, because all of these vehicles here offer something different from that point of view, and also bomber and attacker skills of how to do it. So then you just apply everything that you learn at rank 2, do it at rank 3. Everything you learn at rank 3, do it at rank 4, and then so on and so forth, and you realize it's so much easier to grind through instead of just sticking with one vehicle, which is a premium, and just playing it over and over and over and over again and wondering what the hell you're doing with your life. Literally imagine, you have like millions of options to do. You can go outside today. You can go to work. You can work out today. You can eat pork. You can eat beef. You can eat tofu. Like, you can eat whatever. But instead, what you decide to do is you just keep banging your head against the wall because you're stuck doing the same thing over and over again. That's not War Thunder. War Thunder is variety. War Thunder is diversity. War Thunder is all of these different things, and that is how you will have the best time grinding out tech trees, especially the American one, because there's just so much to it. So just do that. Have fun, enjoy, stick to your dailies, and have a good time. Easy peasy. Hey, Angel of Osiris, nice to see you. I'm doing okay. Voice is dying a bit. So then we have Bull Terrier. We need to all campaign for the UK to get the Scimitar, the Scorpion. Would be great for the UK to have an actual British light tank rather than using South African vehicles. Sure, I'm sure they will add them going forward. It would be very surprising if they don't. So then we have this one. So we have Alex. Alex 190 Alex, which I can't sort out for some reason. Come on, there you go. I wonder when the boiling point will be for Russian bias. There is clear Russian bias in the game right now, and at some point I'd imagine there will be a big enough group of players who will be upset enough about it, and they'll do something like review bombing or whatever. I can also see people being so over it that they either leave the game or they just join them, because if you can't beat them, join them. With that being said, do you think Russian bias will be a problem far in the future? And what would you do to change the bias if you had that power? The best thing to do if you believe that certain parts of the game are overpowered compared to others, you need to play those parts of the game to understand them, and then if you still believe that they're overpowered, then therefore that's completely fine, right? Like, once you've figured out like where you stand when it comes to that area, then fair enough. Then what you got to do is you got to play all the other nations around that BR to try and understand why those areas are like that, and if there is any BR decompression that can be done, or if there are any reward changes or any vehicles that they can add to try and fix that area that you think is screwed up. When it comes to like the Russian bias issue, it's the same thing that we said all the time. Like, if You really think it exists? Just go play the tech tree. Like, there's no reason to play anything else at that point. If you are of the mindset that the nation is just better in every way than others, apart from it's got, you know, some of the worst destroyers in the game, apart from its cruisers are pretty crap compared to everything else. Most of its early helicopters are also awful. You just never hear about them. And also a bunch of their like mid-tier stuff is just absolutely gaff as well. But don't worry about any of those. Just focus on the areas where they're powerful and forget that any other nation in the game has powerful areas either, and just completely focus on one of them, because that's the one that you see a lot, because a lot of people play it. Don't worry about America, don't worry about Germany, don't worry about Britain, don't worry about Japan, don't worry about any of these nations. Just worry about one specific one, and then go play the vehicles and then understand them and work out if it's true or not. If there really was an issue with it at the level that people think that there was an issue with it of, then the game would have died long ago. Sweet dreams, Finzilla. Have a nice rest. Then we have Atlas Row. I still personally believe top tier Germany needs to be flushed out and added to. Seems rather empty, and most things you bring in are tier 6, while you maybe have like 3 tier 7 vehicles. I feel like it would be refreshing to top tier, while also giving low tier players a break from Germany, getting another insane World War II or Cold War vehicle. Sure, why not? Just add more vehicles to the top tier. The first thing that you need to understand is vehicles aren't balanced around rank or tier. They're balanced around BR. So BR is the thing that actually matters the most. If you have a look at Germany, right? So let's see. What's the lineup that Germany has at high tier right now? Alright, so got the 2A6, the 2A5 that you run together. They're not even the top BR, are they? Oh no, they are, sorry. So you run the 2A5 and the 2A6 together. You also run the TAM 2C, which is criminally underrated, and also the Puma, which is criminally underrated too. And then also you have the Florakrad. So that's pretty solid. Then you got the squadron vehicle you can bring in, which is not too bad either. Aviation is the major issue for Germany and has been for the longest time. So, yeah, I don't know. Just add more. Screw it. Why not? Just go crazy. So then we have Louis Armour, I think. I'd like the amphibious ASU 57, the K73. Yeah, sure. It's a pretty cool vehicle. I'm fine with it. Also, shell prophecies need to be slightly reworked. Overpressure with non-penetrating hits with the APHE is very silly and needs fixing. Volumetric shells need to be reworked somewhat significantly because Panther mantlets and T-34 turret rings are ridiculous because of volumetric doing silly crap. Finally, shell shattering needs to be removed. It's a sporadic mechanic that randomly punishes players even when they don't make a mistake and isn't even accurate. Other than that, you're doing something fantastic with these tech. Keep up the good work. I do agree there's definitely issues with the volumetric shells, specifically in the mid tiers. The shell shatter thing, I would like to have a look into it and see how it works or why they added it. I can't remember why they added it. Yeah, sounds good, Freeman. I can't remember why they added it, but I'd have to, I'd just have to look over it again. It sucks as a mechanic because you feel like you get punished even though you didn't do anything wrong, right? And that's no good. It's not very fun at the end of the day. German naval is one of the weaker ones out of a lot of the other ones, but they have added a ton to it to try and make it usable. Let's see. The shell stuff is kind of annoying right now. We'll have to see what goes on. So we have emergency broadcast system. Between the how people play during these events and the RP changes still not being implemented, I'm finding myself less interested in actively playing War Thunder. On top of that, Baldur's Gate's a ton of fun, and we have Armored Core 6 coming out later this month. Starfield and Payday 3 next month. I honestly can't see myself coming back to this game until the next major update or later. I mean, that's fair. It's good to change up games that you want to play, right? At the end of the day, it's good to have a bit of fun. It's good to try different things. That's exactly the same with War Thunder and also with the games. That's why recently I've been playing more RTSs and playing more FPSs, just to try and have a bit of fun and kind of go around and enjoy myself. Such as Men of War 2 and hopefully Tempest Rising that's coming out soon. Then we have British Tanker. Is it possible to do the Battle Pass and events when only playing on the weekends? I mean, you can do the Battle Pass stuff, but no, I don't think I mean, you can still technically do the events, but you won't get a lot out of them, right? And that's the problem, which won't be very fun. Hopefully also at the same time you can do a bunch of other things with it. But yeah, probably not. You won't get the major prizes doing that, unfortunately. You need to play every other day, at least. And we have Jason Modest. IL-2 has dynamic war servers, which War Thunder could actually do even better. If the creative designer for this game actually became creative, blah 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 blah, bought some servers actually capable of even running Naval EC, which currently totally not even working, remove the HUD mess for realistic, copy paste IL-2's PvP campaigns and structure some more features on top, you have a more casual ongoing war, blah 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 blah, thoughts. I've looked into IL-2 and how the systems work. The issue with IL-2 is the same issue that Heroes and Generals has, and also the same issue that Enlisted has. If you only have two sides to an engagement, what ends up happening is one side dominates the other, and therefore nobody plays the other side. There's a bunch of games in the past where they've tried to address this, and they haven't been able to. When it comes to IL-2, let's see, IL-2 Sturmovik, Battle of Stalingrad, there are 250 people playing it. IL-2 Sturmovik 1946, there are 31 people playing it. IL-2 Sturmovik Cliffs of Dover Blitz, 23 people playing it. Maybe you can't just take these games where nobody plays, especially stuff like Battle of Stalingrad, and increase it to a player base of tens of thousands and see the same similar results. Maybe, I don't know. I would like some kind of dynamic war scenario, but not linked to an actual campaign specifically itself. I would much prefer if basically each nation had a set of goals that they're working towards over a year, and if they hit those specific goals, then the people who helped with those goals get specific prizes, whether it be a SLRP or other things. I think personally that would be much more fun. So we have Paul D. An observation. Today I tried to send a preset radio message and instead I got a voice announcement that RT was knocked out. I don't know if it was because the crewman was knocked out or the equipment because I had taken damage while I was doing the pushing of the T42 cover me keys. It might have just been an overlap, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, they could do something like that. That could work. I think, and I mean, if that's the case, it's a lot more complex than I thought it was. So we have Daniel Rex. Hi Tech, how's your day been? It's been alright. You know, we got the event done and going to be playing some Men of War in a bit. What minor nation do you really want that you haven't said yet in all your vids? And also, I hate the infantry idea people suggest, so to the people who suggest it, stop. It's not a good idea, but anyway, sorry about that rant there. I've had an idea for a while for naval, so here it goes. For each class of ship, there is do, you, they should be folded like the Sumner class TD folder or the Omaha cruiser in a folder. Yeah, sure. Yeah, they should add more. They should add more folders to all of the different trees. Just don't be too crazy with it. I would be completely fine with it. That would be okay. The other thing as well is with the nation thing. I mean, I think I've discussed pretty much all of them that I'd like to see. The only one that I haven't really touched on, funnily enough, is like I haven't really talked about too much is Norway as a nation, but they have some pretty cool vehicles, but I just don't want to start independent tech tree talks right now. That's probably the best way of doing it. So we have presidents. Yeah, it's the thing. Sure, put the 262s at Lobias. Then we have the president, Irina Vladimirovna. Nice. Hey Tech, I appreciate your effort with the name. If it helps it read outside of YouTube's all one user thing, President Irina Vladimirovna Putina. I kind of like just screwing with it, if I'm honest with you. The AirSim thingy is just a matter of practice. I'm actually better at AirSim now than I am at AirRB. I also love bringing my L2 to ground sim. Fun little story from a recent match. Guy brings a HE111 with the Frix X to ground sim, goes to high alt and drops his bomb, gets a double kill on his own team. Lol. This means he sat there staring at what was obviously two Tiger tanks, guiding that 1k kilo bomb the entire way without realizing what he was doing. Most important pro tip for anyone who wants to get into sim: for the love of all that's holy, learn how to identify vehicles, identify them before you attack them. And for those who won't stop asking for damn infantry, play Enlisted or COD's ground war mode. Yeah, pretty much. About the match ending results thingy, they should do it like Ace Combat 7 does it. The winning team flies in formation, show off their aircraft, and the match MVP from either team gets an acrobatic solo flyby afterwards. I can't describe it so well, so there's a video. Okay. Can I have a look at the video? Alright, so... Oh, so they like all go together? I mean, it could do from the people who actually survived at the end. That could be kind of cool. Yeah, it doesn't take too long either. Yeah, I'll be fine with it. That works. Something simple but effective. Yeah, why not? Looks nice. So then we have Brano Duraj. Spawn camping is totally legit. It's a pain in the ass, but when your team is shit, what do you expect? In many games I played, majority of the team didn't play objectives, but rush to enemy spawn was obliterated and game was lost. Yeah, that does happen. If people counter them, right? Pretty much as simple as that. Team Valkyrie, follow Freeman into battle equals Death Wish. As I've said, Freeman is a very good carry, but he does need support elements around him. So yeah, pretty much is that. So yeah, it's all good. Then we have Colonel Grizzowetz. Ah, you said my name right. I love it. Sorry to upset with the IFE comment. One thing has to be understood. Like when it comes to comments or discussions or questions or anything, they don't upset me. Like I don't get sad about it or, you know, angry or anything really about it. What it basically means is, like, it's just more of a... Sometimes it's easier to get the point across in a more passionate or more deliberate way. So never apologize for comments or never think about stuff like that. Then we have Papa Starling, and once again superior to your Chad and Tech. Opinion on the doxing situation that Rocker caused, and can you ban Monet for the high crime of being French? Yeah, Rocker has an issue that he just keeps fucking doxing himself over and over again. But he is getting better, slowly but surely, so he'll get there. Then we have Monster Freak, thank you for posting, thank you for watching, hopefully you enjoyed it. And we have Liam7, I've used the controller in AirSim, man just needs to learn. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of War Thunder just comes down to experience, right? And people just want that experience straight away. But at the same time, you know, it can be done. It can be sorted. It just takes a bit of time and a bit of patience and a bit of practice. Then we have Tysol. Not sure why it takes getting 3 kills in top tier tanks to go positive. Also, rewards should not be split between teammates capturing same zone, so dumb. Well, they're fixing the reward thing, and also nowadays all you need is premium time to be able to go only positive or neutral. So there you go. Fun times now. Anybody can play however they want, which is good and bad, because I've had some absolutely horrific teams recently. But it's only gonna get better. Doubt it though. We'll see. Then we have Ice Baby. Really do not want infantry in this game. Leave that for Call of Duty. Yeah, I think that's fair. Then we have Orvis. Where are the timestamps? I don't see any pinned comment with them. They're also not in the description. It's up there. We looked at it in the thing. Then we have Game Spot Week. Heli-based spawn camping is such a ass, to be honest. Yeah, I understand why people get annoyed with spawn camping, especially with helicopters, because you can't really deal with it. I don't know. I don't think there's invincibility for helicopters. If there is, then just hold C and then have a look around before you go, right? But if there isn't, then obviously it's a bit rough. But yeah, hopefully they can do something about it. Then we have Team Valkyrie again. Can't sense a massive Waffenträger. Most of the time, though. You kind of overpressure them, though, which is quite fun. Then we have Jeremiah Huson. I disagree with having stuff locked at certain BRs. I don't care about World War II stuff. I oversaturate myself with World War II era as a kid. Now those vehicles bore you. I mean, fair enough. I mean, it doesn't take too long to get more post-World War II vehicles. PBV301 is rank 1 or 2, I think. It's pretty much as simple as that. So, yeah, you can get that done. And then we have Oversekus. The highest quality is 360. It was probably still processing since, you know, these videos are like 3 hours long, so they take a while to process and a while to upload. They're also, whenever I've done them, they're 50 gigs in size. So just to give you an idea, they're not tiny videos, these, with everything going on in the background and also the chats. But I feel like we talked a lot about some good stuff in this, you know. Obviously clarified some stuff from last time and some newer ideas. Hopefully, we can continue to do this. I'm sure we can. There's no reason why we wouldn't be able to. And yeah, we'll just keep tracking forward. Do you guys in the chat have any questions before we wrap up this video? And then go on to play some Men of War. Oh, I do need to do one thing actually. We finished our air thing. So we have to open a card pack, don't we? So let's do that. Since we're opening a pack every time we complete a thing, a marker distinction. So we have Galadriel. There you go. That's Galadriel. And then we have Argenium armor. So this is this is just a standard MTG card, which sucks. Then we have, Knights of Dol Amroth, full art, lovely to see. Shiny as well, beauty. Gimli, Mournful Avenger, classic to see him, good old Gimmers. Full art Gothmog, beauty, the good old Morgul Lieutenant, nice to see. Then we have Stone of Erich, or Erich. Council Deliberation, good stuff. Gandalf's Sanction, good old Saruman kicking his teeth in. Gollum's Bite. But look at this. Look at the art. Like, it's so ridiculous. And then, Wizard Rockets. Nice to see. Lorien Revealed. And we have Troll of Khazad-dûm. Nice. It's the boy from Moria. Let's go. And we also have the Battle-Scarred Goblin. Probably also from Moria. And we have a alt art land, which is beautiful. Nice. Beautiful stuff. Alright, let's see. Can you explain your actions in Iraq? No. Unfortunately, those trials are still ongoing, so I'm not able to comment on them. Would love to comment on them, but yeah, it's not something that can be done. Can we bring back the Just Get Good people who ever complain? It's a fine balance, Carter. And it's been the same balance for about 10 years. And also, did they really just compress high BRs even more in the recent BR changes? Not really. So, like, if you think about it, right? So, earlier on in the year, what they ended up doing is they decompressed the higher echelons of ground. Right? So, after decompressing the higher echelons of ground, what they didn't do is decompress the middle area of ground. These recent changes are in line with decompressing the middle area. So what we'll have after what they've just done now is a lower BRs. They will then decompress those. So basically, this is just a continuation of the decompression that they did previously. And when you decompress the mid-BRs, what ends up happening is you recompress a few vehicles at the higher echelon, but also decompress stuff more in the middle. So 676360 got a major decompression, whereas 10010-3 got a recompression. But overall, it's a decompression, right? So yeah, it's a bit all over the place. But yeah, the research things will be fun too. We'll see when they come in. But that is the end of the tech talk. Thank you all for being here. It's been a long one, but a good one. And they seem to get longer every time. Last one was good. Hopefully people enjoy this one and put in a bunch of different stuff as always. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.